What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka UniqueMazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. And guess what? Ain't nobody guess. We live up in here, baby. What's good? How y'all feel? This is At Me, bro. And it's like I said, I'm Brian Mazique, and this is Nelson Blake. He just laughed. He didn't say nothing. He generally laughs before he speaks. I guess. I don't know. How you doing, Nelson?
I'm doing fantastic, Brian.
Okay, and you got some of your hair back on your face and everything. Man, look at that. You done aged like 17 years in a week.
I,
This is
I have
awesome.
puberty in between last week and this week.
I could tell. And you know what? You definitely did not get any of that hair on your face coming out and helping me deal with the braving weather conditions in New York earlier this week.
I
I'm
did
going
not.
to tell you, friends ain't really that, but that, you got to be careful the way you throw that F word around, because I told Nelson, I said, yeah, I'm going to be in New York. And he said, good. I'm
Look,
happy. I'm happy for you.
y'all gotta understand, it's not that easy for me to get to Brooklyn from Queens, and it's cold. And you had such a busy schedule coming out here.
Yeah.
I was just gonna go out there and shake your hand and then get back an hour and a half train back to Queens in 20-degree weather. Come on, man.
That's a
Real
long,
friends wouldn't. You wouldn't even ask me to do that.
that's a long way. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like this, because I forget the last year was at the Hulu Theater, and that
Yeah.
wasn't
That
quite
no,
as
that's
fun.
that's a skip. That's nothing. No, Brooklyn is the problem is it's not that far. If it was warmer weather, I could take a path that gets me there quicker, where I'm outside more. But the trains don't go across town in New York. We don't have a lot of north-south trains, and
Yeah.
that's a north-south trip. So
And
by
see,
car it's close, but by train it's a nightmare.
yeah, see, that's one of the other problems with New York. No north-south trains. That's that's the one thing.
Yo, in Chicago, y'all got one train that go in a circle. He talking about our train.
No, we have a plethora of trains that go everywhere. Okay, you can get anywhere you want to get on public transportation. In New York, like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. We're gonna get to this show, I promise y'all. But I gotta tell you something. We got we we had to talk about my part of my trip, right? So I stay at this hotel, and I asked you this. This is another reason why you're not my friend. I asked you about Eurostar's hotel. I said, "Is that a good hotel?" You said, "Yeah, it seems like it's on a good street." Man,
Was it not good?
Norman Bates checked my bags. Check my bag. I said, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but they I think they tried to do too much with the room, because
uh,
the room had a living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a hallway. So that sounds good, right? But it looked like somebody's like corner basement,
mm,
and it felt like that too.
that's not what I look for in a hotel room.
It's not, and I was itching. And so I all I could think about was Kyrie Irving and the bed bug thing that he had when they stayed at
No,
the hotel.
I didn't hear about that, but that's not cool.
Yeah, but I started itching, and it turned out to be nothing, I think. 'Cause
Oh,
I'm
if it was something, you'll know.
I'm looking. I was just trying to
And,
make sure.
if it was a bed bug in a week, y'all are about to find out.
I was just trying to figure out. I'm like, look, I didn't feel great about it, so
Yeah,
I boiled my clothes when I got home.
yeah, you
So
got. You might just let them go.
yeah, I might have to do it, but I didn't. I wouldn't. I noticed once I hit the cold,
Yeah.
which is the cold that you wouldn't come out in. That's when the itching stopped. So and then I figured it was in my mind, so I just said, forget it. I let it go. But I promise y'all, we're gonna get to show. I promise you. I've had some very interesting trips to New York. I got to tell y'all about one in particular. The first time I ever went to New York, it was on one of these trips, and every time I would go on these trips, I would forget something, right? So my wife decides, she gonna pack my bag, and she gonna make sure I don't forget nothing this time, right? So I'm like, okay, baby, go ahead and pack my bag. I felt so good. I got some assistance. Now this was, I'm telling y'all, I used to go on these trips before, and I didn't have 2 nickels. You know, I would go on these trips, and somebody has back when I was with Bleacher Report, people would send me on trips. I would go, I would cover it, but I didn't have any money really, because it looked like I was doing better than I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I go out here, I go into my bag to check and see what happens and what I got and everything. I promise you, my wife loved me. I really do believe she do. But sometimes you can't tell. She packed me 1 pair of drawers, man. And I'm in New York for 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So listen here, man. You ever been in a foreign city with 1 pair of drawers for multiple days? That ain't
No.
good.
See,
That
what I
that
honestly,
ain't good.
I usually stop at a store. Like sometimes I like to pack very, very light,
Uh-huh.
buy all my clothes in the city, and then throw them away on my way back.
Okay. So that would have been great. But I told you I didn't have no money, right?
Now that's where that
I
is
didn't
not.
hardly have any money.
It's
So
not a plan for all situations at all times.
so I'm telling you, man, this is how it used to be. Like this is how
Yeah.
like it used to be bad. So
So
I'm
was you
out here,
scrubbing them in the sink and drying them with the
man.
hand?
I'm washing drawers in the sink with hand soap
Oh no!
every night. I'm walking back and forth to stuff, itching like 40 going north, man. You understand me? And I'm just drawers crusty and cold. It's so I don't know. I think that's what turned me against New York. 1 pair of drawers in the cold, that'll do it to you every time. So I don't want to relive that anymore. But let's get into the show. Let's get into the show. I had to tell you about that though, because that's a
Let me
different.
say thank you for everybody who showed up early. We're not normally a live show, but as Mazique, we alluded to, he's doing the hard work coming up out here to New York City, not getting visited by his co-hosts, doing interviews, going to
Yep.
fancy dinners with all of the NBA draft people, talking about how miserable of a time he had.
Applebee's.
Yo, you serious?
Yeah, that's where we went.
Oh,
Why
well,
couldn't I go to Apple? What's wrong with going to Applebee's?
I do keto. I can't be messing with no apple.
Oh well, yeah, well, you know.
Put sugar and everything. But anyway, because you was out here, we wasn't gonna have you fly back home, wake up at the crack of dawn, do a show, you know. So we popped on here live for our first ever live show, and thanks to everybody who's already in the chat, because this ain't what we normally do. But if y'all seen us on the Sim Hangout, y'all know we enjoy it.
Yes, yes, we definitely enjoy it. We have us a big old time. It's a great thing.
So what we
So
got for topics? We got some spicy topics today.
we do have some spicy topics, and there definitely looks like there's some people in the chat already. I appreciate y'all coming through. And one thing that we are going to do, we usually do Ask Us Bro after, you know, as a separate show, but we're going to roll right on into Ask Us Bro after that. So after we go through our topics, so we're going to go with the questions that have already been sent to us through Twitter. And if you guys have some questions that you want to give us in live chat, we will take care of those as well. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is we got to talk about LeBron James, man. There's a lot. It's a lot going on with LeBron.
Big accomplishments this week.
Yeah, but I got a question.
Sure.
Should he really be celebrating?
See, now we might be on opposite ends on this one. I'm gonna say yeah.
You know, you know what it's like. You know what this is like. So, if anybody that doesn't know, LeBron just passed Michael Jordan for 4th on the all-time scoring list. Outstanding accomplishment. But it's kind of like losing your job on your birthday.
See, now here's the thing. I think when let's get right to the heart of it, right? Because people have a feeling about the fact that from a team standpoint, this is the worst situation he's ever been in, right? People would argue his rookie year, but the thing is, when you're a rookie, there's no expectations, and the Cavs were such a joke, they weren't expected to do anything. This year, the expectation was get to the 8th or the 7th seed and upset somebody who's not the Warriors. And they are missing the playoffs by what looks like is going to be a wide margin, and the team looks worse than when they started off. This is the worst situation he's ever been in from a team standpoint.
Yeah, from an expectation standpoint, I can agree with that.
Well, I would even say going into next year, because it's like an unhappy locker room. I mean, they do have cap space, which is the only good thing, but they look like they're going to fire their coach, all this other stuff. And he don't have 15, 16 years ahead of him. He has a very tiny window, and he looks like he's declining rapidly. So if they don't get him the perfect team soon, the end of his career is not going to be great. So this is like, for me, the scariest moment in his career. from a bad standpoint. Point being, though, people are looking at what he was expected to do with the Lakers and saying, how can you celebrate this? My thing is this. When like Michael Jordan, he hasn't, I don't think he's chimed in on this, but he said in the past that numbers didn't mean anything to him from that standpoint. He really cared about winning and championships. Otherwise, he would not have, left the league several times and all this other stuff. And he would have gone for those kinds of things because if he was competitive about that, and I think that's true, I think he's being honest about that. That having been said, it's fair for this to mean a lot to LeBron because what LeBron has told us in the interviews afterwards is I'm trying to explain to you what Michael Jordan meant to me as a kid in Akron in our situation when you don't know how the day is going to go. Sometimes that's all we had. When you have I'm going to go straight to it. When you have a father, you have a rite of passage that you go through as a man. And beating your father in a basketball game, if you're a ball player, is it. Like for most players, once they beat their dad, everybody else is in trouble. For some guys, it's the older brother, depending on the family setup. But a lot of times that comes from the father. LeBron grew up in a fatherless situation, and when you're young and you're in that situation, I think what you do is you project some of these rite of passage milestones onto people outside of your circle. So for him to pass his basketball father figure, hero figure, and Michael Jordan is totally different than when Kobe passed him or when Mike passed other people. It's totally different. I do. He's still a human being who at one point was a kid who didn't even think he would actually be in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, and I understand completely why it's a big deal. But there are things that happen in your life that are outstanding, awesome things, right? But because of when they happen, it doesn't. Sometimes it impedes your ability or your liberty to celebrate them. There's times when things like that happen, but I think that, and I definitely think that that's the case now. I don't think that this is the ideal time for him in himself. I'm not talking about other people's perception. I'm talking about him himself. I truly know. I feel like this is, if he could have it another way, then he wouldn't have had this particular thing happen.
Well, I don't think anything that's happened this season with the Lakers has gone the way that he's wanted it to go. This is a terrible season for him.
It's a terrible season.
Utter disaster.
But honestly, man, I really, let me preface this by saying I love LeBron. LeBron's one of my favorite players. I've loved LeBron since he was a sophomore in high school, which was the first time I ever saw him. Like I saw him on Sports Illustrated. I was like, who is that kid? I was like, wow, this, I'm like, he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated right now. I'm reading scouting reports from Danny Ainge when he was a junior. Danny Ainge said if he was in the draft right now, he'd be number one, period. He'd be the number one pick, right? So I was totally taken with this kid from that point, right? And have stayed a fan of him throughout his whole entire career. But right about now, LeBron is really exacerbating the issue. Yes, you don't have a great situation. You don't. Things didn't go right in terms of player acquisition that you guys thought you were going to be able to get, even in the offseason and during the season. Things didn't go the way you wanted them to go. You got hurt. Rondo got hurt. Lonzo got hurt. All of these different things. Brandon Ingram's been hurt. All these different things went on. But his effort, or the lack thereof, is making this worse. Now, don't get me wrong. He's not the first veteran to ever totally pull up and go 75, 80% throughout or whatever. But here's
sometimes
the
it'll like 40, 45.
Well, no, I don't think it's 40, 45. I think it's 70, 75. And the reason why I say that is because he's giving the same effort on offense. He's just not giving it on defense.
That's 50%.
Right. But it's like, and he'll do it on defense.
Will literally have to pick him up and throw him at his man.
Actually, that was a confusion spot, but
who was he guarding? Who was he guarding?
I don't remember which.
He was not guarding anyone.
I don't remember who was on.
That's why he threw him. It wasn't like he covered Kuzma's man and Kuzma threw him.
I believe it.
LeBron stopped playing defense.
No,
He totally did.
No,
Watch the
he's
play.
no, no.
I've seen it 100 times.
I'm not disputing. He definitely, you can
Yeah.
absolutely see the effort wasn't there, but
He's like, I don't know who to guard. I'm gonna guard somebody.
it wasn't as egregious as some of the other things that I've seen him do on defense in the last 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Which
Some of
which says a lot.
right, because
Which
like
says a lot.
just last night, he got back on defense, or he didn't get back on defense. There was a turnover, and he hadn't come back yet, and
Yeah.
so he's the last guy back. And Jamal Murray ran it right to his chest, and he literally didn't even raise his arm.
Oh, he got bodied a couple of times. It was disgusting. But here's the thing, Mazique. I don't disagree with you about any of that stuff. And we talked about LeBron's toxicity. I think he's a major reason the season has gone so poorly. I think if you put other people in his place, the season goes better. Now, he can't help his injury, but I think when the chips were down, he reacted very poorly on the court and off the court. However, you only pass Michael Jordan, never. That has only happened literally to 2 players,
But
3, I guess, if you count
but
Karl. They played this alongside each other. Kobe Bryant and LeBron James are the only 2 people ever to pass Michael Jordan in scoring to date. So for him, as a guy who grew up watching him, I think this season, for a day, you can put aside what's going bad to say lifetime achievement. That's a beautiful thing. We can appreciate that, and we'll go back to being miserable tomorrow.
I think I think for the exact reasons that you just made, for the exact points that you just made, I think that's exactly why that makes it tougher. Because I did grow up watching this guy like this, and I did have him on this pedestal, and he is the greatest player to ever live. I am wearing his number, and I am wearing it because of that. And I chose 6 because 2 times 3 is 6, all of that, right? But all of that is why this makes it even tougher, because I got this guy on this pedestal. This should be a bigger moment for me. It's almost like somebody sits and they wait to get married, right? And they've been waiting to get married all of this time. This has been their dream to get married. And then they finally, the woman or the guy, to get to their wedding day. And usually, obviously, ladies tend to look at the wedding like this bigger thing, right? And they get to wedding day. And they always dreamed it happening a certain type of way, but it's happening amidst some turmoil. And yes, do I enjoy my wedding? Did she enjoy her wedding that day? Is she appreciative of it? Absolutely. But it doesn't feel the way it could have felt if it wasn't surrounded by garbage. And I think that while he enjoys it and while he appreciates it, I think that for sure, this would be, you can't pause the mess that's going on. You just can't, because here's the problem. He is always and forever compared to this guy. And so now you pass him at a time period where people are literally sitting and looking at you and going, this is why you're not him. And that's when you pass him.
Again, I think certain accomplishments are so big that it's easy to appreciate it, even when because everything don't got to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? And I do say this as a person who, full disclosure, if people are new to the show, I am doing what I wanted to do when I grew up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I actually got to draw Spider-Man, which is one of my, that was what I wanted to do as a kid. For me, that's making the NBA, is drawing Spider-Man and having a Marvel logo on my paycheck. That was what I wanted. And at times, things haven't been perfect, but I could always appreciate how fortunate I am to be in that position, and still recognize how much work is left to do to get to a better position. Still recognize mistakes I've made and mistakes I want to make sure to be a better man and not make those mistakes again, improvements I want to make, but still say, you know what? Half of it is appreciating where you are. And if the accomplishment of passing Michael Jordan's points is way better than how bad this season is, particularly because at the end of the day, the peak for this season was second round, lost in the playoffs. That was the absolute peak.
Yeah.
So if they're confident that they're going to make moves in the offseason, it's not the end of the world that they have one bad season. In fact, I've made the argument that it's great that they're not going to make the playoffs because he needs the rest. This guy, especially his regular season success, has basically been incomparable, right? When's the last time we didn't have LeBron James in the finals? It was like 2009 or something like that.
Yeah.
So him having a bad regular season, finally, there's no comparison. Like, literally nobody in NBA history compares to that level of success in the regular season. So regular season defeat versus passing Michael Jordan all time in scoring forever and ever. Michael's not going to put on a jersey again and get past you. Not a repeatable day. I can let it go for that day. and still acknowledge how much of a mess everything is. And I'm a Lakers fan, so
Yeah,
I
and
hate
so I'm not. See, I think what I'm looking at is not just that the Lakers are having a bad season. I think that what I'm more looking at to hone in on it even closer is that it's not that the Lakers are having a bad season. It's that he passed Michael Jordan right smack dab in the middle of him being the center of all of this controversy and criticism about his lack of defensive effort and lack of overall effort. And to me, that happening right when this is happening, it's just it's just it feels to me like it limits it. And this should be bigger than it is. It should be bigger than it is. It should have more
Well,
to
you
it
know what's funny?
than it does.
I actually don't think it should be bigger than what it is because honestly, him passing Michael Jordan on the scoring thing because of all of the stuff we talked about, some of the stuff we didn't. The fact that Michael didn't shoot threes, the fact that Michael actually wasn't going for a total point scoring record, and quite honestly, I don't think LeBron James is close to the level of a scoring weapon that Michael Jordan was. He's a different kind of player. He's a great player. And if you talk about overall greatness, I think you can have conversations where you say LeBron's overall greatness can get into the realm of Michael's overall greatness, depending on how you look at it, how much you include longevity and all that stuff, consistency, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of that specific accomplishment as a scorer, he could score twice as many points as Michael Jordan, play till he's 65 years old. He'll never be the scorer that Michael Jordan was. You know what I'm saying? So this doesn't really change the conversation of LeBron versus Michael. It's just kind of a, oh, wow, good on you. You did that.
Yeah, I don't think it like changes that. I think that what I'm looking at is he's some things that take place are for the casuals.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a certain level of weight that goes on that, right? And a lot of casuals will look at it and they'll say, "Oh, he passed Michael Jordan. That valid." And the media, us in the media, we're gonna run with. I mean, I have colleagues that I know will run with that as a headline, knowing full well that him passing Michael Jordan and scoring doesn't mean anything that he's better than Mike. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that he's a more prolific scorer because, as a matter of fact, Mike did it in less games and without as much of the emphasis on the three-point shot, right? So it doesn't mean that. But these numbers still do have some validity. And I shouldn't say validity. They have weight is what I should say. Because
And here's the thing, and this is, I'm kind of playing both sides because I've said some negative things about LeBron. LeBron's a stat stuffer. I've seen him play terrible games live,
yeah,
terrible
and
games,
have a triple double.
and he's the best at that of all time. It's funny to me that they talk about Westbrook stat padding when he's an effort guy who always plays like that. LeBron will literally be in a 20-point blowout. For people who've never seen like LeBron live, this is something they don't show on TV. He'll be in a 20-point blowout where his team is losing, laughing and joking on the sideline. He got 30, 11, and 10, and made a whole bunch of mistakes, had some turnovers, clearly didn't have one of them like super efforts, but he just is a walking stat machine. That is just who he is. You know what I'm saying? So I think out of many of the players all time, LeBron is one of those people whose stats mean the least.
See, I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. I think that his stats mean the least because they come so easy for him. And I think that we devalue what he does and we ask so much more of him because of who he is. Because if he were another guy, and he put the numbers up that he put up, we would be more forgiving of his defensive lapses. We would be more forgiving of the times that he doesn't show maximum effort. But because he's LeBron, because he is the greatest physical athlete the game has ever seen, he gets no slack. And to a degree, for him to be considered in the same class that he's considered in, yeah, you're not going to get much slack because when you're that great, much is going to be required and expected of you.
Is that point right there? He's directly compared most often to Kobe and Mike.
Yes.
because Kobe and Mike are and sometimes Magic and
It
sometimes
actually should
Larry.
be more. It should be more Magic, but the fact that he's not compared to Magic more just shows you the lack of basketball IQ of most people who do a lot of these conversations about who's the greatest, because his game is more similar to theirs to his than anybody else's. Than any of the. I mean, he's his own guy because there's nobody
Yeah,
quite
that's
like him.
what I lean more towards. Is
Yeah,
he's his own
there's
guy.
nobody quite like him. But if you're going to compare
Yeah,
him
and
to
when
a
you go
guy,
to
it's
in the
him.
top 10, honestly, the only two comparisons that are good are Michael and Kobe, because those two are really similar. Everybody else is kind of a one of a kind guy, and that's kind of the knock on Kobe. I actually think that's a credit to Kobe because Mike set the bar so high that the fact that he could duplicate him to the point of one championship shy is like, well, good on you. I didn't think anybody would be able to do that. But that having been said, everybody else, you need to compare them in context. You can't compare Bill to Kareem to Will. You know what I mean? It's a different game for each of them. That's why they're so great, is because they're pioneers and they've added something to the game that nobody else brought before and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, still, in terms of the lineage of great swing players, guys who would come in and be able to dominate the game, he was in the lineage after Michael was Kobe, and after Kobe was LeBron. They had all the commercials together, they had the rivalries. He talked to Kobe, asked him advice, all that stuff. And he has 3 championships and a whole bunch of losses. Some of them you could say definitely not his fault. Some of them you could say absolutely his fault. And I don't just count finals losses. We talked about it on the show. Losing to Orlando, having a weird situation in Cleveland where he quit against Boston and stuff like that. Like, he has a bunch of L's on his record that compare unfavorably to Michael and Kobe for that matter. Even if you take the Detroit loss and the Phoenix Suns thing, there's still more of it when there's LeBron. So I don't think it's an unfair comparison unless everybody in that class is judged unfairly.
No, I wouldn't say it's an unfair comparison. I'd say that it's not necessarily the proper comparison. I wouldn't say it's unfair
No,
because
you said they cut him no slack. Nobody gets
oh
slack.
no well
Once
no
you
I
break
don't
into the top 10, you don't get slack.
no and no and that's the so that
Shaq, you was too
that's
fat.
not
Kobe, you was too toxic. Michael,
well,
you quit.
that's not a comparison. That's just
Will, you
that's
was
an evaluation.
overrated.
That's an
Kareem,
evaluation.
you wasn't the best player on your team. Larry, you not athletic. You couldn't play today. Everybody has some weird, stupid thing that people put on them once they get into the top 10, because that's the conversation once you get to that level.
Oh, absolutely. That's essentially what I said. We were talking one thing we were talking about was comparisons. That's more of an evaluation. And like I said, when you are that great, you're going to be evaluated on that level. It's going you're going everything, any shortcoming that you have is going to be magnified. And all of your strengths, or most of them, are going to be ignored, especially once a shortcoming rears its head. So it just kind of is what it is. But
Speaking of shortcomings, what's our next topic?
there are, if you're, well, we must be talking about something different than what I'm about to talk about. If you're talking about shortcomings, because ain't nothing coming up short from what I'm seeing in the last few weeks. Now, we had a conversation maybe a week or two ago about the top shooting guards in the league. And I don't consider you to be crazy to leave Zach LaVine out of the top 6, which is what the conversation was. But I think that
It wasn't it top 5.
it was
top
top
6, top 6?
it was top 5, but you said
Well, because Victor Oladipo's
Oladipo
not
was
playing.
hurt. So I said, since
Like,
Victor Oladipo's not playing, then I
yeah.
said, okay, well then I would slide Zach up. But Victor Oladipo would be ahead if we're just talking about shoot 2 guards in the league. I don't even know why you decided to eliminate injured people like they died. But
Basketball wise, he dead.
No. He'll be back. But so Zach LaVine is playing very good basketball. And what we're seeing a tweak in the coaching philosophy, which has elevated his game on both ends of the floor. And this is coming from somebody who watches him play on a regular basis. And on both ends of the floor, and not even just as a scorer, but even as a creator and a defender, he's elevating his game. And people have to realize that he's still only 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And right about now, this dude, man, I'm telling you, I don't think a lot of people would say you're crazy to call him a top 5, top 6 2 guard. He's playing that way. He's playing that way, and he's doing it against the game he had last night with the guy who was guarding him the whole night.
Hold on. This is disgusting. First of all, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
This is truth based.
I
is what this is.
See,
this is truth based.
I apologize to everybody who's watching the show, watching us discuss.
No, you don't have to. This
like the 4th time in 3 weeks. It's sad.
No,
this team has 18 wins.
We just talked
about how they got a top 6.
Just talked about the New York
I got a question
for 30 minutes last week.
You put Zach LaVine over Bradley Beal without hesitation.
I didn't say without hitting that. See, you create words and add other emphasis where it was not. I did not. You asked me that. I said, I said, yeah, I think I would. That is absolutely not without hesitation.
Why do you have Zach LaVine above Bradley Beal?
I think athletically, I think he's more explosive. Now, Brad has definitely shown that athletically that he's still not. He's not on Zach's level, but he's not on Zach's level. But he's clearly.
Let's actually clarify that he doesn't jump as high as Zach,
and he's not as fast.
Right, but he's a lot stronger.
He's a lot stronger. He's definitely a lot stronger.
Over and over on the show that strength is an extremely underrated athletic ability in the NBA, because until you get strong, and this isn't just me saying this is literally NBA trainers and coaches saying this, until these guys achieve a certain level of strength, that athleticism only manifests in situations where it doesn't matter, like the fast break. That's going to be 2 points anyway. Yeah, you jump from the free throw line and the other guy jumped from inside the free throw line. Who cares? 2 points is 2 points. The athleticism, the jumping ability specifically matters when it turns into finishing in the paint through defense and defenders not contesting you because they don't want to get dunked on. And that is a combination of jumping and strength. And in that sense, Bradley Beal's strength is a serious factor when you compare their athleticism.
But I don't think that it's a big.
His ability and his jump shot, and his ability to get the jump shot off.
I don't think it's as big of a factor. It's a big enough factor to make him on the same level of an athlete overall as Zach.
I agree.
Overall, I don't think it. And honestly, Zach is shooting the ball. I believe the last I checked, Zach's shooting the ball better than Brad Beal this year. So, and overall, honestly, maybe even, overall, I mean, you are hard pressed to really nitpick at Zach's game. The turnovers are higher, but they're mostly higher based off of earlier in the season. He's had a couple games where he's had a lot of turnovers, but if you look at some of those games and you look at the amount of minutes played in those games and that sort of thing, then you kind of see why the turnover situation was what it was. You also look at, I mean, honestly, man, if you really just take a look at the games that he's having, it's beyond the stat line. Look at the situations. Look at the way these points are coming. Like yesterday, he dropped this 39 with the game winner, with number one, an elite defender on him in the entire game. Number two, not only is he an elite defender, he's the guy you got traded for in your building. That's significant. That's significant, man.
I don't think anything that happens for the Bulls is significant in the second half of the season. Because here's the thing, and I watch losing teams because I'm in New York. I bet you do. Here's the thing.
I disagree.
A lot of times teams come in, especially second half of the season when they just want to get to the playoffs. You get a lot, and Philly didn't even have Embiid, obviously. You get a lot of these games where guys, I mean, Phoenix just is on like a 3-4 game winning streak or something like that. They just beat Milwaukee and, LA and all these other teams. Like, this is what happens. The Knicks have gotten these wins. They went on a 2 or 3 game winning streak against teams they shouldn't have beat. This is what happens. All of the losing teams, Atlanta's getting W's. All of them are getting these wins and putting up numbers now.
This is not a conversation about should we consider the Bulls a dangerous team down the stretch. That's not the core. That's not the fabric of the conversation. The conversation is to harken back to our what we talked about when we talked about top shooting guards in the league. And you poo-pooed the mention of Zach LaVine in that
Yes, I still
category.
think Bradley Beal is better than Zach LaVine. Yes, I do.
And I'm not going to say that that's ridiculous. I don't think that that's a ridiculous concept. But what I'm saying is to dismiss Zach as if he has no business in that conversation, which is what was done initially, is to me.
I still dismiss it. He's the guy on a terrible team. Now listen, here's the thing. I tell you all the time. In fact, on Sim Nation, I was on the Sim Hangout. I was the one who said I thought it was a big mistake letting Zach LaVine go and keeping Andrew Wiggins. I highly suspect that they kept the wrong guy and they let the better player leave. I am not here to close the book on Zach LaVine.
Well, you don't have to close it because he's opening it every night.
Listen, why you interrupt me? I let you
I'm
speak.
just no, you never let me.
I'm not here to say Zach LaVine will never be a good player or a great player. There's things about his game he has to fix. He has the athletic base there. He has the shooting. The thing is, in order to be a winning team, he has to be a part of a winning system. And my biggest fear with Zach LaVine going forward is that elements of his game don't fit into a winning system yet. And that's when you become a trap player who puts up a lot of numbers on losing teams because you get put in situations that on a good team you wouldn't get put in. Now, if you get good enough at that, it can become that, right? This is
but here's the thing that's kind of shocking me.
I wouldn't even finish, but
okay, you paused. See, I'm from Chicago. When you pause, we think you're done.
I mean, all I did was put a period at the end of a sentence, and you just squeezed your butt right in there.
Periods and commas the same thing, though, especially if you got bad eyesight. You don't see that little line hanging at the bottom.
If the conversation was who are going to be the next best shooting guards going forward, and you said I'll put Zach LaVine in that conversation, I go, sure, he has the potential. He has a lot of ways to go. Now, there are other guys who also have that potential. Like I said, Buddy Hield. He has the kind of offense that I could put on a playoff team right now and know exactly what I'm going to get out of him. And I go, I kind of like that better. Now, I think he's a little similar to what's his name, Booker, where Booker is like, he could be a great player, but it also could be that you in Phoenix getting a lot of shots and you get hot. And when you get hot, you look good. And then in these other games, when teams come to stomp you, you just put up empty numbers against stomp like everybody else. We have to see you start to actually win games to really judge your skill set. Bradley Beal has been on playoff teams and been in that situation. So right now, I do feel that Beal is a stronger player. I feel he's a smarter player, which is the main thing. I feel he's a smarter player. I feel like he works better in the structure. I think you could put Beal in a lot of winning situations and get a very high level productive shooting guard. Whereas Zach LaVine, I'm not sure about it yet. Maybe he will grow into that. Maybe he won't. But up until now, on an 18-win team, I'm not giving you top 5 shooting guards in the league on an 18-win team. That's ridiculous.
I see. I think, but you're talking as if the Wizards are the number 3 seed. The Wizards are not a good team either.
But he has a bigger body of work than just this year, and the Wizards were a complete mess. And Bradley Beal, most people would say, was by far the best thing about the Wizards. I still think the best thing about the Bulls is Lauri Markkanen.
You know what? I think you think that because you don't watch him every day. And if you watch Lauri Markkanen from a talent standpoint and from the overall package, I absolutely see it. But Lauri Markkanen, I question whether or not he has that dog. Do you have Lauri Markkanen consistently gets caught in mismatches where you have a smaller guy, and if there's 2 bumps, he's passing it back out to the top because he's looking for Zach. And then Zach is the one that's taking the shot. But that's the kind of stuff that you don't see unless you watch them play. And for me, watching them play, I'm watching how Zach LaVine gets open shots for himself and for teammates, how he makes things happen at the end of games, which is money time, which is what I'm looking at more so than anything. It's about how you're scoring, because we all know you can put up a bunch of empty numbers. And I'm not in any way disparaging Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's a heck of a player. He is. But if you ask me who I would prefer to have on my team at shooting guard at this point, I'm taking Zach LaVine all day, every day at this point. And actually every day I'm getting even more positive about that decision because of the way he's playing, because of the way he's scoring, because of the way he's turning up on defense as well. He's getting better. And you know what else is most important? He's asking for the elite level defensive assignment at the end of games. At the end of the game last night, he wanted Jimmy because he knew Jimmy was going to get the ball. He knew that Jimmy was going to drive and try to attack the basket. He wanted the assignment. And that's what Lauri doesn't have. That's what Lauri doesn't have.
Well, the thing about Lauri, why I say I think he's the best thing about the Bulls right now, even though I do think Wendell Carter still has some potential, is because Lauri's 7 feet and can shoot.
Yeah.
And he's athletic. And he had a major injury this year and hasn't played a lot of games. And he's a much younger, in terms of experience, player than Zach LaVine. So I give him a lot of forgiveness in terms of his on-court performance right now in favor of the potential. Because if I take Lauri Markkanen's ceiling, even if that ceiling isn't super duper great, even if he's just a bit better than Mirotic, that's still something that I can throw on a lot of playoff teams right now and say that's what I want. Whereas with Zach LaVine, he's competing for the James Harden role. And I need to see more before I can say I accept that from you, because that's not the ideal situation to be in right now. Ideally, 3-and-D guys, high octane point guards, big men who can defend the pick and roll and shoot. That's what the league is about right now. It's not about two guards going out and getting theirs, which is why our two guard list after James and Clay was like, well, what about this guy? Does he even play? Because they get really, really interchangeable because there are no guys like James outside of James, really. And Clay is just the elite 3-and-D guy who can get super hot and can score 40 points on 4 dribbles. So that is in a class of its own. With Zach LaVine's position, even what he's trying to do, I need to see it get to that elite level, because until he becomes an excellent defensive player, it doesn't add up to what championships add up to right now. Like, none of the championship teams are using that element of a guy who is that high usage and isn't a great defender and maybe slightly undersized, isn't the greatest playmaker in the world. Like, that's not ideal. Now,
yeah, but I would say
but
that
he's young.
whole
Hold on,
synopsis that you gave of him is totally inaccurate at this point.
No, you're going off.
That's like Zach LaVine's scouting report 2 years ago.
No, but here's the thing. If what he's doing at the end of the season happens in games that matter in a winning system, then I will say, well, that was a sign for the future. If it doesn't, and his role either gets reduced or this was an albatross, because I mean, we just watched Jason Tatum kill it for an entire playoff run and then have a disappointing year afterwards. So forgive me for asking for a little consistency in games that count.
No, it's you know what? I think the thing of it is that you're not getting a chance to watch the progression. And I think that's the thing. So you're still grouping him in the way he has always been assessed and the way he's always been evaluated. And that's not the player that he is right now.
I've watched Zach LaVine this year, dude. And there's some times where I'm like, oh, if he does more of that, he's going to be really good. And there's other times where I'm like, if he does more of that, I still don't love him. But
well, yeah, I mean, I say that about James Harden.
Nah, that's crazy.
Dude, James Harden goes 0 for 17 from 3 sometimes. And we accept it because he's James Harden.
No, we accept it because they win.
No, not when he's 0 for 17 all the time. They don't win. Not all the time.
They win a lot. And that's the thing. Is like the Bulls still, I mean, they've been playing better since the Otto Porter trade.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. 100%.
I still think that a significant portion of that is that teams are weird after the All-Star break. They're getting into that mode. I don't put stock into any of the games from anyone that's happening at this point in the season. So many of the playoff teams are just like, let's try and get healthy and get ready for the playoffs. And so I think it's very, very easy to overrate what's happening in games like this. It's not that I haven't seen Zach or that I believe that Zach won't get better. Every time I talk about young players, what do I say? You don't know what they're going to be until at least 4 or 5 years. Don't close the book on any of these guys. I usually say, especially for point guards, wings tend to develop a little faster, but Zach is an undersized wing where strength is his biggest athletic, problem. If he gets stronger, he'll be better. Oladipo got stronger, he got a lot better. The stronger these guys get, Bradley Beal, stronger he got, better he got. If Zach gets stronger and improves on his game, sure. Am I going to give him that off the end of the season with 18 wins? When half the teams are coming in looking to sleepwalk through the Bulls? Absolutely not. No, show me that. I need more than a couple of weeks of good basketball.
I mean, well, you can't average 24 points a game on a couple of weeks of good basketball. That math just doesn't work.
Well, I think I've seen a lot of guys get 24 points on a bad team and
24 points a game is you
not do anything on
that's
good
not from one, that's not from 2 weeks. That's not from 2 weeks. I mean,
No, it's the uptick to what is he averaging? 27 points in the last 2 weeks, 27 and change.
it's
That's
yeah, it's 29, I believe, in the last week or two. And it's been on the strength of some
since the Porter trade.
Since the Porter trade. I mean, overall, the whole team is playing good. But like I said, this is not about the Bulls overall. The Bulls have looked better as a team, and I do think there's some value in them playing this way down the stretch. At first, I was really bad on it because I was like, oh, you're going to ruin your chance to get the #1 pick. But to be honest with you, it goes from having if you're in the 4 seed, it goes from having a 10% chance to get the #1 pick, I think, to like 16% if you're #1. So it's not that big of a deal. And if Ja Morant slips to #4, you still get the guy you most need anyway. So it really doesn't. Right now, if it started right now, the Bulls would have the 4th best chance.
You think Ja is going to slip to 4th?
I think it's a possibility. I think it's definitely Zion's going to go #1. RJ could easily go #2, and who knows if they take Cameron Reddish at 3.
If my team take Cameron Reddish over Ja Morant, I'm going up to the Garden and start.
Well, no, I could see your team taking RJ Barrett.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know a team picking that high because honestly, I think the Suns should pick Ja Morant. I don't want to get off topic, but they need a point guard like nobody's business.
They need a point guard as bad as maybe they need a point guard probably just as bad as the Bulls. So that's the thing, you know. But can you pass up Zion? That's the thing.
Yes. Yeah, you sure can. I mean, the thing is, in Phoenix, they need to put butts in the seats, and Zion will do that. But at the end of the day, Ja Morant might do that too. They have a history of drafting great point guards, and they need to go ahead and do that if they're in that position. But that having been said, last thing I'm gonna say on this is the main thing is when you become a good team and you become the main threat on a good team, people defend you differently, they scout you differently, and that is a trial of fire that guys need to go through until I put them in the tops of the league. And guys like Oladipo and James Harden and Klay Thompson and Bradley Beal too have been through that. And guys like Booker and Levine who've only lost, I don't think they've gone through that yet. And until they go through that, I don't really know what they have, particularly as younger players. I take Buddy Hield and put him aside, not necessarily because Sacramento's winning this year, although that is a factor, but because the kind of game that he has isn't the kind of game that really changes based off scouting reports. Not a whole lot. He has a game, but he has such a Klay Thompson element to his approach to the game. Such a catch and shoot, come off of cuts, that kind of thing doesn't change as much when people scout you differently. And with who else is on his team, I don't think he'll be the focal point. Whereas with Zach going forward with the Bulls, if the Bulls become a threat to be in the playoffs or be in the playoffs, I think people are going to try and take stuff away from him. And depending on how he responds to that, will let me know what I really need to know about Zach LaVine. And this environment right now is not that environment.
Yeah, I would actually argue the same thing about Brad Beal because Brad Beal hasn't been the man on a good team either. He's always had John Wall, but we'll see. Ever since Brad has been the guy, the Wizards suck. So I mean, it's just what it is. But we're gonna move on to let's talk about the 2K League draft. I was, as most people know, I was there this week. This is what we're talking about with the weather and the extreme cold. It was freezing, but the event itself I thought was really good and very, very much like the last year's event wasn't horrible or anything, but this one was just flat bigger and better. For the first thing is that last year's event was held in the Hulu Theater, which is a much smaller venue. If you really remember back in the day, it's the old Felt Forum where they used to have the NBA draft back a long time ago. But now it's the Hulu Theater. So, and it's smaller. It's cool, but it's smaller.
I like the Hulu. They have some good shows out there.
Yeah, but this one was at the Barclays Center, which is obviously a much bigger venue, a bigger deal, the whole nine. So that's the first thing that you pop in, you see. But the biggest story of the entire draft was Chiquita Evans, the first ever female drafted into the NBA 2K League. I got a chance to interview her today, which so you guys be on the lookout for that. That's coming up. Man, I'm going to tell you, she has the quality that is going to be needed to do what it is that she's about to do. Because whenever you're first, oftentimes you're not first only because of your skill, right? It's not only because of that. It's also because you have to have the right temperament to deal with some of the stuff that's going to happen. Very similar to like Jackie Robinson. Like, and I'm not necessarily like putting her on the same level because this is obviously two entirely different level stages. But Jackie Robinson was chosen to be the person who was the first African American in Major League Baseball, not only because he was a great baseball player. That there were other great baseball players in the Negro Leagues, but Jackie Robinson was chosen by Branch Rickey partially because they knew that he had what it took to deal with some of the stuff that he was going to have to deal with. So I think that not that Chiquita is walking into a situation where she's going to be being heckled every day or anything like that. It's not that. It's just about the overall pressure of being the first and feeling as though you have to represent for who you are, you know. And so I came away from our conversation today feeling really good about that with her. So I can't wait to actually share that because I'll be sharing that a little bit later on. But that was a huge part of the whole event. She was selected in the 4th round by Warriors Gaming and with the 56th pick overall. And I'm going to tell you, the ovation for her was the loudest for anybody. I'm talking about not even the #1 pick in the draft, Rhea, that went to Jazz Game and got anywhere near the ovation that Chiquita got. And she didn't expect that. She really didn't. She actually kind of didn't know what to expect, right? And you could kind of see it on her face. So it was definitely a pretty cool moment. It was definitely a pretty cool moment. So she wasn't the only young lady and had an opportunity. There was another young lady, Brianna Novin, aka Icy Girl, who I pretty much kind of knew she wasn't going to get drafted. You know, just kind of looking at some of the combine stuff, I knew that just wasn't going to happen. She wasn't. Maybe she'll be ready down the line, but I knew that wasn't it this year. I knew it wasn't going to happen. So I don't think that anyone was surprised that she went undrafted. Another takeaway that I had was chemistry is a humongous deal this year with the 2K League. Huge. Last year, there were so many situations with these teams where these guys got into it with each other and it literally broke down everything they're doing. So anybody that's watching this stream and you've played Pro-Am before and you got to arguing with your point guard, you got to argue with your center or whatever, you know how that can just kill a game, right? Now imagine living with people all the time, every day, and this is an ongoing issue. Not to mention there's something else that might have happened that didn't even happen on the court that now is spilled onto the virtual court. So I saw a lot of consideration being given to to the chemistry thing. When these GMs were drafting these players, they weren't just drafting them based on their stick skills. They were drafting them a lot based on how they felt that they were going to fit from a chemistry standpoint. So I don't know. I got like 10 things I wanted to go over about this. I talked about 3 of them already. If you want to jump in anytime here, Books, let me know if you got something to say about any of this stuff. Another thing that stuck out to me was there were a ton of players denying interviews. Like, so basically, once you make the draft pool, the way the process works is that you have to get, teams get the permission to interview you or what have you. But you don't have to take those interviews. And there were a lot of players not taking interviews from certain teams. I think personally that was a mistake. You know, I know maybe they're emulating things that they've seen in others, like, actual live action sports leagues where you see people doing that. But I think what they don't realize is that they don't have the same leverage that those guys have.
It goes back to what we've been telling these guys before. Um, and on this point, I want to say just on the draft, I'm obviously happy for Red Stick. He's done some interviews
Yes,
with us.
yes,
Chill guy. I've spoken to him a lot, and happy that he got in, and also happy for the Island Gang that those guys are.
yes.
Because
Slay,
Yes,
Bear the Beast.
yeah, everybody from I think their whole crew got in. I know
Hmm.
Slay got in, and I've watched a lot of their streams and very mature, professional comp guys, and I think and consistent too.
Hmm.
And that's going to what I'm talking about. In other esports, people build up a following and they build up their skills, and that gives them value. The skill gap in NBA 2K has still not widened to the point that you're not replaceable as a player, and nobody, literally nobody who's in the 2K league has enough of a personality to be comparable to the biggest personalities in 2K or other esports.
Hmm.
They're all totally replaceable. So what they need to understand is bunker mentality. You're all on the same team, making this esport legitimate.
Hmm.
Because right now, nobody watches, nobody cares. There's literally someone streaming Apex Legends, Fortnite, and Overwatch right now. I'm not even looking at Twitch. You guys, I'll bet on it, that have more viewers than 2K League has ever gotten. An individual, not a tournament, just a person. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So you don't, like you said, you don't have any leverage because you don't have any value. Now if the game gets a serious skill gap where only the very best players can possibly win a game, and it becomes like real life basketball where having a LeBron or a Giannis or a Zach Levine makes your team that much better, then you can say, I make you better. So that's my leverage. Right now, the game isn't to that point yet. It's a system oriented game where the most important thing is communication and cooperation, not necessarily individual stick skills. The game has too flat of a skill level right now. So unless you either build up a serious following or the skill gap widens, you hold a hand in hand with everybody in the 2K league. Y'all shouldn't be fighting nobody. You know what I'm saying? Because this is all about creating the most entertaining product possible. On that note, I'll say the draft was pretty solid. I think the commentary and presentation has been improving for the,
Vastly.
yeah, like that's been really great for the 2K league. I don't want to only poo-poo it because I said it's going to be growing pains and I said they're going to improve and all that stuff, and I'm glad to see that that improvement is happening. Now, I really want to see the product improve. I need to see much better action and presentation on the court. If we go through another season of 5 out, this is not just for 2K. Any game that goes through this, if there's only one meta, the game gets stale and viewership goes down. Blizzard is bending over backwards to keep something called Goats Comp from taking over the meta. They don't want only one way to play. Styles make fights, and we need to see more styles in the 2K league, and 2K needs to help them out with the video game presentation aspect of it, because right now, just even watching it, it needs to get closer to the entertainment value of watching an NBA game.
I would agree. With pretty much everything you said. There is no one currently in the league, not even Dimes, and I know that's the one that people would think about, who has enough of enough clout to be that important where they can do. Now, here's the thing: we say that, but Mavs Gaming is almost treating Dimes as if he is on that level, because what we just saw this year was there was a ton of dissension with Dimes and his team the entire last season. I've had people tell me literally by mid-season, every single one of his teammates couldn't stand him. Like, I've had people tell me that, right? And during the offseason, Mavs Gaming wiped the entire roster clean except for him. And if you looked at the draft, the way they drafted, you could tell they literally treated him like he was LeBron. They drafted only personalities that would mesh with him. So or at least that they think will match, because you don't really know until you get them all in there, right? But Pete B. Ballin, Grant Monster, by any means Mo, I'm just slipping my mind right now the other guys that were drafting, but they literally rebuilt their entire team around Dimes. It was Sherm and Rux, and Rux was in the league last year. He played for Pistons GT. So I mean, this is literally what they did. So one thing and Dimes is funny because Dimes was called the LeBron James of the NBA 2K League, right? And they were doing that as kind of a loose thing. That was a lot of people who don't actually play 2K that would kind of throw that moniker out there because he was known as the best player and LeBron's the best, so whatever like that. But honestly, there's really some similarities in this, and I wrote about this today, because most people think that LeBron is kind of like lead GM as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked as if that's what Mavs Gaming did with Dimes this year.
Is the GM?
Yeah, he is the GM. You know what I mean? So it looked like that a lot. So it's going to be really interesting. But I think that Mavs Gaming had a great draft because they did get really good players who do have on the surface the types of personalities that will mesh well with him. So that was actually one of my biggest takeaways from what I saw. The other thing, and this kind of lends itself to what you're talking about, the league is missing statistical access, just giving that access to not only the community and the fans, but to the media itself. I say all the time, right? You know why we get so excited for the NBA draft and why we get so excited for the NFL draft? It's because we have a frame of reference, right? I know Zion Williamson averaged 18 points a game, 13 rebounds, a block and a half, and a steal and a half, and all. I know this
on 98% shooting.
Right. I know this because I can watch his games, and if I can't watch his games, I can go to sportsreference.com or ESPN.com and I can see his stat line and it gives me some reference. The 2K League doesn't have that because when they do their combine, they're super secret with all of the statistics. You know, they don't want to so they're like, oh no, when we track more than points per game, rebounds, block shots, and everything, we track things like steal efficiency and block shot efficiency and green percentage.
Can I pause you right there though?
Yeah.
This problem is already solved in the world of 2K. If you go onto YouTube and you put Park Pro-Am mixtape, you will find a bunch of things that if you at all like 2K will either be entertaining, funny, interesting, or put you off depending on what your preferences are. This is good because this means that it's comparable to every other product out there. You do not get the same thing from 2K League because 2K League is a completely different build in a completely different space. You see what I'm saying? So the flaw of Pro-Am, we talked about this on the show, the badges are too overpowered. So it leads to an imbalanced game. But anyone who's a fan of competitive gaming will tell you imbalanced games are sometimes the most fun games to watch. So,
go ahead.
Well, as much as some of the personalities aren't my cup of tea, and some of the tactics they use when it comes to Park and stuff like that, I could say, well, that's not basketball, that's not sim, or blah, blah, blah. Some of it's funny, some of it's entertaining, and most importantly, some of it is a wider skill gap on an individual level than what's happening in 2K League. Right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So the 2K League plays like a soccer game, and Americans don't like soccer for a reason. Because you want to see the kind of individual skill, not that soccer doesn't have it, but the kind of individual skill that shines on the same consistent basis as the NBA. They need, and the product needs to, and that's what the stats, and to get to your point about the stats, that's what the stats reflect.
Yes.
So when we talk about Michael versus LeBron in terms of the scoring, and we both agree that LeBron's not the same level of scorer. We know this from watching the game and watching the head-to-head matches, watching Mike take over a game in his way and watching LeBron take over a game in his way, and Kobe and Magic taking it over in their way. And we're comparing actual emotional memories and experiences. That's not happening with the 2K League. I've watched a bunch of it, and some of the comebacks were thrilling, but it was very much a team, completely, structure-oriented thing, which is not a good thing because that means that it's too flat. There's not, and when I say too flat, I mean the skill gap. There's not enough peaks and valleys in the performances. right?
Right.
It's too rigid. The structure of things too rigid. So the stats will matter more when the individual performances matter more, because then that will give the stats meaning.
Right. No, and I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But my thing is, you can't. It would be great if all of that came to a head at one point, at one time, right? But to me, I think to advance the whole process, you have to start to create some individuality, even if it's a mirage, right? Because here's the thing, there's a lot of numbers and statistics and things that combine numbers, especially, that we gravitate to when it comes to the NBA draft and the NFL draft. And to be totally honest, it doesn't really mean anything on the next level. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I can name you 10 guys off the top of my head who blew the NFL combine up and
I
sucked.
believe my favorite. I think my favorite one was Tyler Hansborough recorded a better vertical leap than Blake Griffin.
Yeah, yeah, stuff like that. Stuff like that, right? So like just totally blow your mind. And then sometimes it'll get a guy like you know this name, I'm sure, as soon as I say it, Vernon Golston.
Mm-hmm.
New York Jets, supposed to have been an amazing pass rusher coming from Ohio State. Went to the combine and ran a sick 40. He seemed like the quintessential pass rushing outside linebacker and sucked in the
Mm-hmm.
league, right? But here's the thing. The fact that Vernon Golston was a conversation piece
Right. It was just
because we knew him, and we knew him because we had these numbers to attach to him, kept us interested. And the fact that he was a bust was actually good for the league and conversation, because and then it happened in New York. Like, yes, that's great. So we need the 2K league needs that statistical reference even before it totally matters the right way. Get it there first anyway, because and don't be afraid to share the things like the steal efficiency, block efficiency, efficiency, whatever, how many times you got back on defense, how many times you left your guy open, you started getting bad teammate grades.
Mm-hmm.
Share that, because now what it is it is the 2K league's equivalent of advanced metrics.
Yeah.
Right. So it goes beyond the points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. And now it goes in because I was talking to someone from the 2K league, and they were telling me, they was like, well, we can put out here about how many steals and blocks, but we're finding that if you look at the block efficiency and steal efficiency, they're spamming. I'm like, I know, put that number out there too.
Right.
Educated 2K fan will go, oh, he's not as good because of this.
Mm-hmm.
The same way a surface level NBA fan will say, oh man, he averaged 28 points a game. But then they're not looking at the fact that he shot 37% from the field. You know what I'm saying? His turnovers are through the roof. They're not looking at some of those other types of advanced metrics. His usage rates
Yeah.
through the roof.
I don't disagree with you at all, but I do think that it needs to happen on both ends. You need both sports
Yes,
top 10 Shaqtin' and a Fool,
yes,
and you need Synergy Sports. You know what I'm saying? In advance.
yes. Oh, absolutely. I
So,
totally,
yeah.
I 100% agree.
I do think that they're doing a poor job of both of those things. However, I also want to acknowledge and be totally fair that from a esports production standpoint, they've gotten a lot better. So that's
Absolutely,
and
100%.
also, what we do, because we also interviewed Famous Enough,
Mhm.
who's friend of the shows and all that stuff. Good guy, Miami, Heat Gaming coaching, and he has said that they're putting more of a focus on the personalities and the chemistry
Yes.
going forward, because they saw what an issue it is when you get the egos and stuff like
And
that.
he had a fantastic draft. To me, his draft was comparable to the Mavs gaming draft, and he took a chance on a kid who is known as having a bit of a personality thing, and because of the culture that Famous has crafted with Heat Check Gaming, and because of the strength mentally of the other guys on the team, I think that kid will be fine. As a matter of fact, I think that kid is going to flourish in that environment because it's the right place for him to be. So
Yeah,
I mean, dude, I really, spending that time with those guys and there with Chiquita and all, spending that time with them in the league, it really reignited my fire for the league again, because I'll be honest, it had dimmed quite a bit by the middle of the season last year. It
yeah.
really had.
Honestly, I'm kind of neutral on it still, but it's a positive neutrality in this sense. What I said they needed to do was they needed to create independent leagues And they needed to put their effort into those things to create both competition and a fertile ground of talent from which the 2K league could grow. Because there's going to be things that you guys do in your league that are better than 2K league, and there's going to be things in the 2K league that you guys could take from, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And last year, I saw a tremendous uptick in competitive pro-am play. And 2K, to their credit, made an effort to put in private matchmaking. It didn't work until like yesterday. Hopefully, that keeps getting better. And I things are moving forward. I don't expect it to get perfect overnight. I do love the fact that the game is becoming more competitive. I think it's going to be 2 to 5 years before the game is what we hope it to be.
I would agree. I would
Um,
agree. I think you'll see
yeah,
incremental improvements between now and then that will make it more watchable every year. But I agree 2 to 5 years is a realistic timeline for it to get
yeah,
to. But the good thing is the commitment from the prime stakeholders is there.
absolutely. Which goes back to our other point. That's why you kids have no value. This is welfare right now. They are backing you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This that you're on scholarship. You are not making them money yet.
Yeah, not yet. You're not.
You have a
None of
long
them.
way to go before you make
None
them
of
money.
them are
Nah,
making money.
you are costing them money. Everybody is costing money.
That is that is actually an excellent perspective, an excellent way to look at it. There is not one single player in the league right now who is making the league money. Not
You
one.
all have negative value. And I say this as someone who wants you to have positive value. I came up in the fighting game community and watched people go from negative value to positive value. I want the same thing for the 2K players. I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to knock on you. I'm saying be aware of your situation so you can make the best of it, grow from it, and become a person of value and make a legitimate living off of this. This is something that could be a failed project that does nothing but cost the NBA money and gets them into esports in a completely different way. They could dissolve this league 2, 3 years from now and create a whole new one that is completely different functionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you guys,
I mean, I strongly doubt that would happen, but yeah, I mean,
I
theoretically,
hope
yes.
not. It could happen,
Theoretically, yes.
though, right? Because it ain't making them no money. That's why it's possible. Is so I don't want that to happen for the people that are involved. I don't want that to happen for 2K. Obviously, we have friends over at 2K. Um, Although I want Live to become a competitive product in its own right. Shout out to K Spade. So, I want the best for everybody. I want y'all all to make money, but y'all have to be realistic about what's going on right now. And in some sense, they've done that when they've done more in terms of making things competitive. That's a beautiful thing. Keep doing that. And on that note, if you're not in the 2K league and you haven't become part of these competitive leagues, understand those are the people who should be getting drafted. The people who put themselves, as we said in the Zach Levine discussion, through the competitive fire and proven their talent. They've been on teams. They've competed in tournaments. That is the most reliable data that you have. Anybody outside of that has less of a chance. I'm not saying it's impossible, but they have less of a chance. And you should have no beef with them going through these soft league systems that have happened, these independent league systems, and drafting players from that comp talent pool. You should be happy that there's at least a reliable path, particularly because if you win those competitive tournaments and you're not getting the results you want, you can at least say, I have this value, I'm a winner. As opposed to if you're competing in Pro Am and Rec Center, that's not an environment that anybody can trust because it doesn't take a very good player to have a really big winning record in Pro Am.
No, it really doesn't. It just takes you playing with the people you play with most of the time and you guys not being idiots.
Right.
It's pretty much what it takes, So I got a couple of things I did still want to touch on with this. The one thing is, and it speaks back to your presentation point, they really need to scan the players in, and so that their faces are actually there on the bodies, on the avatars during the games. It is the single thing that 2K can do as an esport that no other esport can do. There's no other esport that will allow the player to look like the kid or the person holding the controller. This is the only one, right? So to me, because you are not necessarily meeting the bar in so many other areas of evaluation from an esports standpoint. If you have this thing that allows you to be unique in that sense, I think that this is something that really needs to become a priority for the league. Because I mentioned this once to someone from the 2K League. I said, imagine if there was a scan day. So after draft, about a week so after the draft, there's a actual official 2K scan day. 2K gets to scan and post all of these images of all of these guys and girls who are now in the league. The PR for that is awesome. You're helping them establish brands, all of this, and now people are it increases the chances that people are now looking for these people when they play. And now it's recognizable because we're already having we're talking about the inability for these people, the players, to individualize themselves from others. It becomes even harder when they're not using characters that look like them. These are all things, like, I'm not trying to say this instead of the skill gap. I'm not trying to say this instead of anything else, but it all just contributes to the overall concept of allowing people to become individuals and individual brands. And this is something that 2K has the ability to do that I really think needs to be done. Also, I really love the overall leadership, though, overall of the 2K League. They are a joint venture. So sometimes what one way the league wants to go, maybe 2K can't go or doesn't want to go. So there's a thing sometimes that there's a struggle there. So it's important to know that. But lastly, we had another player get suspended this year, this just 2 days before the draft, or a day before the draft, for breaking code of conduct. Something on social media he forwarded or whatever, and it's actually a kid that I know who he is. I've met him several times, played ball with him. Nice guy, good guy. Timely cook. He was on Steel Trio when they won. It was him, Dimes, and he was on that team, so he's very much well known. He played for Kingsguard Gaming last year. But something happened. I don't know the full extent of everything, but he ended up getting bumped from the league and suspended for a year, eligible to try to come back in season 3. But literally, he just gave up at minimum 40 grand. So he literally sent a $40,000 tweet or $40,000 Facebook post is what happened. And I know that the players are getting some level of social media etiquette, some level of training on that, but clearly there are people that are not taking advantage of it. And I'll give you a quick story, and I swear we'll move on. There was a kid, and he had to change his name, and I'm not sure exactly what he changed his name to, so I'm not even sure if the kid got drafted or not. But the kid's name was This White Boy.
Okay.
So, and he's my old friend's boy. He's White Chocolate's guy, right?
Okay.
So, if for anybody that doesn't know, White Chocolate and I are cool. And I have no problem with him. We've talked several times, DM'd and messaged each other several times. I found out that his birthday is the same day as my birthday, which was hilarious in itself, right? So I hit him up and I told him, I said, hey, bro, man, you might want to tell your guy, because I knew he was going for the league. I said, man, you might want to tell your guy, man, he might need to change that PSN or that gamer tag. I was like, think about it, man. I said, let me paint a picture for you. Scott Cole's voice. And Dimes comes up the court and passes it to this white boy in the corner. This white boy's got takeover. This white boy is killing Knicks game in the day. Nobody can stop this white boy. Think about
that much worse than authentic African?
You know what? It's so funny that you said that, because that's the exact same thing White Chocolate said.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Where is the country of white boy?
That's fair.
Where is the country white boy? There is no country white boy. That doesn't exist. So my thing is, think about where you want to go. All right. Where is it that you want to go? And do I have anything attached to me It is going
You
to
know,
prevent me from
this
going where I want to go.
and this is why they need to get onto their individual expression more. Because I'm gonna tell you straight up, the NBA brand for people this young in this arena for esports is stale.
Hmm.
There's a fighting game player named Magnegro. That's right, Magnegro.
Hmm.
Because I think at one point he played Magneto, and he is indeed a Negro.
Okay.
And nobody bats an eye,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's some Brown kid is another guy, good Marvel versus Capcom player. It happens all the time, right? So it's just a funny thing that you look at it and you move on. The league is too stodgy for that. And that's not a great look when it comes to esports unless you become like the Overwatch League where you can go all the way to the point of being like the sport. And they need to get there as fast as possible. Because the fact that a funny, harmless name like this white boy can't be in the league, and I think you're right. I think there is a weird thing there because it's racial, it's not national. It's not
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
some German kid or whatever, right? Which would be
Yeah.
a little bit different. That having been said, they need to work on it because they too uptight to be this dry on the court too.
Yeah, you know what? I honestly don't think that they're that uptight. The amount of trash talk that they allowed last year to go on, and not even just allowed, that they encouraged. You know, I don't think that they're that uptight.
Well, okay, let me make a quick comparison for you.
Mhm,
If you look at the top park content providers
right?
and their language,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
NBA is way too uptight
Oh yeah,
by
oh yeah,
comparison.
yeah.
And I'm not even
Swante can't be on in the 2K league.
correct. Correct. Sure, they're not calling Steezo up right now.
Yeah, Swante is my he. I'm his favorite. I'm his favorite journalist. If
Yeah,
you didn't know,
yeah.
but
Why is that, Brian?
oh, I don't know. Couple of things happened. It is what it is. But let's
Yeah,
just move on. I thought I just definitely wanted to give it some time because I spent some good time there, and I can thoroughly say I enjoyed the experience. And I'm looking forward to the season, and
yeah, me too.
that's not something that I was 100% feeling before Tuesday. So that's a good thing. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit. Let's shift gears entirely and let's talk about Devil May Cry 5.
Yeah.
So I just got it was a mix up. I should have actually had it like 2 days ago, but I just got my review code for it. So I played it a little bit actually before we started today. And visually, and so let me just put this into perspective before I get too deep into it, right? I didn't play long enough to be given like a complete evaluation. So I don't mean this to come off as that, right? So let me make sure I preface it by saying that, right? But I will say that I'm not like I think it visually it looks great, but I need to continue to play. I'll keep
Mhm.
saying that. But there's a couple things that I've seen that I don't know that I love. I can't say that I hate them, but I don't know that I love them either. And one of the things is the speed
Mhm.
of some of the actions, right? Now, this game is a beautiful game to look at, right? Color, the usage of color, the mood and the art design is totally Devil May Cry. If you've ever played a Devil May Cry game, you know what it's supposed to look and feel like, right? Totally has that. But a lot of the action is so that it's like I don't get a chance to appreciate how beautiful it is. Now, to their credit, there are some they give you opportunities where they're total glamour moments,
Mhm.
and those kind of satiate you a bit in that way, where you get a chance to look and go, "Woo, look at that! That's fire," you know. But there's an abruptness to them running. I'm not in love with the camera because it's one of those types of cameras that kind of does that depending on where your focus is. I'm not totally in love with that. So I need to keep playing, but I think my biggest issue is Devil May Cry sells its characters a lot. Like hardcore Devil May Cry fans are super into Dante, super into Nero, super into V. They're in there with them, right? I think that the character progression so far that I've seen, the mouth syncing to the dialogue, and just the overall pacing of the story so far is a little strange. I'm hoping that I get used to it, but as of right now, it's coming off to me as a game that is trying to, like, I shouldn't say a game. It's coming off as a story that to me is trying to be deep with a bad story and bad actors. That's the way it's coming off to me. So it would be different if it was like Duke Nukem or something. Like, it's like, yeah, these are cheesy lines and they're supposed to be cheesy, and he's cheesy delivering it.
Right. Which is what Devil May Cry used to be.
Right. But this is almost like we're trying to show you that there's some depth to these characters.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't take itself too seriously from that front. I will say I'm definitely looking forward to it. My Devil May Cry history is kind of weird because I wasn't the biggest fan of the original games. I didn't like it until Devil May Cry 4, when Nero was out, because Nero's gameplay appealed to me with the arm and the grappling and that stuff. That was like when I first really, really got into it. I don't love Dante because of the way the guns play into it. It feels like they don't do anything. It reminds me of almost like John Woo, where it's like 400 million bullets for everything. And
It's funny because it came along around that time when he was a dude.
Right. I like the sword combo, so I'm more into the side characters like Trish, Virgil, Nero. And because this game has, and V has like the magic going on, so because there are more playable characters than Dante, I'm actually looking more forward to this one than I was the previous Devil May Cry games. Although again, strange thing, I like DMC, the previous game that a lot of people weren't happy with.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of hardcore Devil May Cry people are like, they talk, if you mention DMC to them, it's like it's like you're a hardcore hip hop fan and somebody told you that Vanilla Ice was a great lyricist or something. It's
Yeah,
just, yeah.
and I really like that game. I think
Yeah.
that's a really good game. I want to finish that game before going into Devil May Cry. It's kind of like my weekend before I pick up DMC5 is what I'm gonna be doing.
Yeah.
And I like the whole Illuminati Red Bull storyline. I think that's all. It's still cheesy, but it's an action story in that kind of Fast and Furious, underworld kind of vibe, where, like you said, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's still a fun story with some ideas into it. So I'm looking forward to it until I get my hands on it and really master the combo system, because I won't know if it's good or not, because that's what those games are really about.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Spider-Man, at a certain point, it has to turn into almost, video game poetry. And that if the poetry is there, then I'm all for it. If for it, and from what I'm hearing, that seems to be there.
That's what, it's funny because that was the word, right?
Yeah.
So honestly, when I flipped it on, because I did get it a little late, and I have seen a few people saying stuff about it, my expectations were a little higher. And then just leading up to it, even before review copies started going out, the first impressions that were out there were people was like, oh, this is going to be amazing, blah, 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 blah. And so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's bad or anything like that, because it's far from bad. You can tell a great deal of work was put into this game, right? You can tell this was not some crap that was thrown together. If you don't enjoy it, it's not because of a lack of effort on their part. It's just that you just didn't dig it, right? So yeah, but I'm gonna keep playing it. And it's funny because Devil May Cry actually has a significant history for me, because my wife used to sit and watch me play through entire games, and she would follow along the story with me like she was literally watching a movie. She never wanted to play; she just wanted to watch the story unfold.
Yeah.
And Devil May Cry is the first game she ever sat with me and played, and
Oh,
while I
that's
played.
awesome. That's awesome.
So now she's going to sit with me and watch me play Devil May Cry 5, because it reminds us of then.
That's awesome. Yo, stream that, man. Let me see it.
Yeah, I think that might be pretty cool.
So
That might be
also,
cool.
I became a bigger fan as a result of the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 game.
Yeah.
So I've grown an attachment to Trish and Virgil as a result of those games. And
Yeah. That's yeah.
you know I'm a scumbag for playing those two characters, but it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. Hey, I play off ball. All right. So let's move on to the UFC card coming up. Man, I feel bad that we didn't talk about the last UFC card because it was so epic. Like,
it was epic.
It was.
Okay, before we get to this, can we just talk about the Robbie Lawler one real quick?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get your take on it because here's my thing.
Yes.
Robbie Lawler put Herb Dean into a terrible situation.
100%.
When your arm goes
Drop
into that anime, like, it was so slow. It looked like he was about to die.
Yeah.
And that's what the ref said. The ref's like, look, man, we got rules.
Right.
You got to hold up your end of the bargain. Don't look like you just died.
Right. That's all
Like,
I'm asking.
There's a certain amount of trust that we can't give our referees the leverage to have in you. And even with when he grabbed his hand, he did put the thumbs up. The problem is his hand first slipped out of Herb's hand. He didn't grab Herb's hand, which is what you're supposed to do. It slipped out of Herb's hand. And then once it got behind Askren's butt, the thumb came up. But Herb can't see through two human trunks to your thumb. And the last thing I would say is the Gracies put up an excellent video showing that he was in terrible danger in that position, despite the fact that the arm wasn't completely under the chin, particularly when you look at Askren's physical gifts when it comes to squeezing. And we have seen multiple times people get around the hinge of the jaw and put people to sleep. Everybody watching that fight thought he was put to bed. So while it was, by the letter of the law, a bad call, it was not. It was a bad call made under the best possible circumstances. And I don't think replaying that, Herb Dean is the one who should have done something differently. I think replaying that, Robbie Lawler is the one who should have done something differently.
Honestly, I agree, but in different ways, man. I really think that Lawler was out. Because I've seen more than once a fighter lose consciousness momentarily, and come back.
Okay, and we talked about interrupting, but I'm interrupting you to agree with you.
Yes.
I don't know if he was out or not, but I know that I cannot think of a reason for this. I just can't think of a reason, Brian. I just can't think of
the Dougie Fresh.
He said, I just can't think of a reason. I ain't saying you lying. I'm just saying we've watched a lot of MMA.
Yeah.
I have never seen that animation from someone who wasn't
asleep.
Mr. Sandman.
Right. I mean, my man. It was like the WWE. You remember when it was somebody with the sleeper hole put on them?
Yeah, and they fake it. Right.
Homie, your arm dropped.
It almost looked like, and the thing is, when Herb Dean lifted his arm up and talked to Askren let off of him, and it looked like Herb. It's possible that Herb touching his hand and Ben letting off him woke him up. So he went out like that. And and I've been through that actually. I fell on my head once and went out for a quick second. Nobody knew I got knocked out.
Nobody knew. Yeah. And here's the thing also. Askren said that Herb Dean asked him, Robbie, are you okay? Right. And he didn't say anything.
He said he couldn't hear him because he was
you were asleep. I can't hear when I'm asleep either.
Is that why I couldn't hear?
That's why. Because you sheepy time. Because you were sheepy time. That's why. You were sheepy time. That's why, homie. And you know what? I really hate to talk about Lawler like that because he fought so great. He
looked amazing.
He was so prepared. He was so prepared. He was so prepared for the takedown because immediately you could tell he worked that throw.
Yeah.
That throw was something they worked throughout training camp. It's like once he locks on and engages, he's going to go for that single. And when he goes for that single, you change levels.
Yeah.
You dip your left shoulder, you hoist him, you drop, and you go into ground and pound. And that's
And to be
exactly what he did.
totally fair to Robbie,
He
he
could have
was
stopped that fight.
he was all class.
Yeah. Oh, total class.
All class.
Total class.
So even though we suspect sheepy time,
Yeah.
that's our suspicion.
Yeah.
It's also possible that even he doesn't know that he was asleep,
Yes.
because
Yes.
sometimes you wink out like that. And the thing is, and this is what it is for me, the same thing with every early stoppage we talk about, I come down to this. Is there a suspicion in my mind that the outcome would have been different? And in this one, he looked like he was in a world of trouble.
You know, it was too much time left in the fight, I believe,
Yeah.
for there to be a situation where I felt like he could have escaped.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. There's to me a better argument that Dean should have stopped the fight when Askren was getting pounded in the face.
See,
with
I don't think he should have, because we talk about intelligent defense.
intelligently defending it, and he was intelligent. He was taking shots.
He was
But
taking
he was
shots,
trying
but he
to
was
change the position.
and he was not knocked out. This is
No.
not about protecting fighters from getting knocked out. This is about protecting fighters from getting killed when they're helpless.
Right.
And the thing is, if you're not helpless, you're supposed to show it by intelligently defending, which is
Yes.
why the fights with Fat Boy, what's his name? Last time, the fat guy who had his arm up against his head and they stopped the fight and he was upset about it.
Oh.
What's his name? God, it was
You
like
talking about Sam Alvey?
I think so.
Sam Alvey. It was the fight.
Yeah, because he was saying, "Let me take shots," and blah blah blah.
And it was because it was the ref. He says it always stops his fight too early.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Sam Alvey. That was Sam Alvey. Yeah.
And my issue with that was he was getting hit in the arm. He pulled his hand up to the side of his head. Even if he's in a bad position, he has physically earned the right to get hit in the face again.
Well, but the only thing about that is you can only stay like that for so long, because if you're just covering up, the ref is supposed to stop the fight.
Again, but if he's hitting the arm,
no, still, if you shell up,
it's if you. But see, here's the thing: shell up is a generic term, and when you say shell up, I think there's variables to it, because if you're shelled up but you're safe, and you're saying
if you're not punching back, if you're down and you're doing this and you're not punching back, and there are repeated blows and you're just doing this, the referee's going to say you got to do something, you got to do something, you got to do something, and if you don't do something, the fight's going to get stopped, and you might not be taking shots.
Right, I didn't think Alvey was in that position.
No, that wasn't the case with Alvey.
Right,
I didn't think that was a bad stop.
I thought he got into a better position as the fight went on. This was a situation that, again, with some technical thing. This is a great video by the Gracies where they talked about it. They said the reason this is not just a headlock, specifically that it is a bulldog choke.
Oh, it's a bulldog choke, yeah.
Because with the headlock, the chin is pointed away.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason headlocks turn into bulldog chokes and don't get ruled as bulldog chokes is because what happens is when they're trying to escape, the chin goes inward. And once your chin is inward, it's almost irrelevant whether or not the arm is under the chin, because every move to escape that puts you into more pain.
And it can collapse the
jaw.
Danger. It can 100%. Collapse the jaw. So, and that's where he was going. People don't escape being Askren chokes.
Right. And it wasn't getting better.
Yeah, they don't. He's too good at it. You have to beat Ben before he gets to that point, and he is beatable before you get to that point. I think we saw that. But if he gets to that point, the fight's over, bro.
Yeah. All right. So that was a detour. We weren't supposed to talk about that, but we didn't get it. I don't think anything else on the card was really like worth discussing necessarily.
Well, I thought it was a fantastic card overall. I thought the Cody Garbrandt thing was definitely fascinating because
that was great.
Has the lowest fight IQ in the history of the world.
That was stupid.
Yeah.
He played like he was playing the game online.
Oh my God, man. He's like the kid at school who gets smacked in the face and just starts crying with slob hanging from their mouth. Like Cuba Gooding Jr. from Boys in the Hood after Ricky got shot. Just dude, what are you doing? Like,
I've never seen Boys in the Hood.
I'm clicking. Where's the red ball? I'm gonna click it. I'm finna click it right now. I'm about to click the button. I'm about to click it.
You know why I didn't see Boys in the Hood?
I don't know that I want to know
So
why.
okay, so I'm old, right? And when I came up, Boys in the Hood was shown in the theaters, in Brooklyn where I grew up, and everybody was shooting at the screen in every viewing, so
Yeah,
we weren't allowed to see it.
I remember. I remember.
Yeah, so it wasn't until it was out on VHS that I would have even had the chance to see
Right.
it.
I remember that. I do
And that
remember that.
and at the time, things didn't go on VHS 2 weeks after they came out the theater.
Yeah.
They went when they got around to it.
Yeah.
So it honestly just wasn't available for me to see for the longest time. And then by the time it was time to see it, it was like super old, and it was just like I'll get to it when I get to it. And I just have never seen it since.
Well, I do remember that. We were not allowed to go to, well, I didn't go to the show very much anyway, period. But yeah, I remember that the whole thing about not wanting to go see urban movies because there was things, New Jack City, the people got into a menace to society, people got
Yeah,
into it. And
I
it
saw
wasn't,
New Jack City like when that came out.
yeah, it wasn't the movie that was doing it. It was the people who
No, it
were
was the
at the
people.
movie. Yeah.
Right. I like from what I've seen of the movie, I don't know why you would shoot at the screen. Like,
No, they weren't shooting at the screen. They were
like
shooting
I
at each
understand
other.
if it was like Roots.
Right. I'm a star. I'm shooting at the screen
Right,
right
right. It begins now.
now.
Like,
Give us free.
but yeah, I don't know why, but it's a society teaches you to pull out your guns. But
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know.
they
Yeah, it should
misread
be
the
the other way around. It should be the
message.
other way around. But yeah, man. So this card coming up is actually one of those cards that, from a pure action standpoint, could be really good. But the fact of the matter is not many people are going to find out, because the only people that are probably going to watch this are the absolute hardcores.
Yeah.
I mean, Derek Lewis has a following. He definitely has a following. He's that commercial kind of guy. And Junior Dos Santos is a former heavyweight champion. So there is there is definitely some appeal there. I find it very difficult to see. I mean, that's actually a good fight. It's one of those nervous fights, right? Because somebody's gonna get clipped, and usually that's what we think. But the fight that I really am, aside from that fight, is that I'm really most interested in is Curtis Millender against Elizeu Dos Santos. Curtis Millender is, I'm telling you, he is a world title challenger champion level type of a guy. If you see him fight, there's some John in there and there's some Anderson in there. It's not totally developed yet, and he needs to get a little bit better if and when he does get taken down. But the guy has some bananas stand-up skills.
Mm-hmm.
Bananas. So he is definitely somebody that I'm interested in watching. But Elizeu Dos Santos he's a freak. He's a problem. Dude, like, in terms of actually incorporating capoeira in an actual mixed martial arts fight, there's only like 2 or 3 guys that I've ever seen that could actually practically incorporate it, and he's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nasty dude. I mean, he ain't Eddie from Tekken, but he's a nasty fella. So that's a good fight. That's a good fight. And there's a lot of good fights on there. It's just not big names.
Speaking of Tekken, and I don't want to get too distracted on this, but we did a Devil May Cry preview. I'm not Devil May Cry. I'm sorry. Dead or Alive preview.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good game. Pretty
Dead
good
or
game.
Alive. Dead or
Yeah.
Alive. Yeah.
Dead or Alive 6. I think it's probably the best Dead or Alive game made since Dead or Alive 2.
Yeah.
Plays well, plays snappy. Solid mechanical improvements they've made. Good game, and it looks and feels a lot more like a fight than it has in the past.
I didn't love it. I did not love it.
Oh, that's too bad.
I really didn't. I really did not love it. So I did write a review for it. And so people who read my review know that I did not love it. But I didn't hate it, but I did not love it. So yeah,
But that having been said, I do not love this card. Not because it won't be good, but like you said, this is a purist card where this is a card that will pay off in the future.
Mm-hmm.
When these guys are involved in bigger fights.
Yes.
So in that sense, I'm gonna watch it.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of like, if there's a UFC card and I don't watch it, there had to have been something significant going on.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch it. So
So
I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna watch it, but yeah, I mean this is this is for the hardcore people.
this is it absolutely is. So I know it won't be many people with me watching it. So all right, so that's actually it for the topics that we had today. Now, usually what we would do is we would break off and then we go into an ask us bro after that, but we just gonna roll right on into that. So I really appreciate everybody who's still on. If you're still on and you got some questions, I'm going to say this. We'll take 5 questions, right? So we're going to go through the questions that we already have. What's good, Razor? The greatest modder in the world just came into the chat.
From one artist to another, man. Great work, dude.
Now, Razor, I've mentioned Nelson to you on a number of occasions, and you know him from watching this. Now, I want you to realize who just told you great work. And I'm going to say this because he only gets 1 compliment per quarter.
You know he don't like saying nice stuff about me.
So, but Nelson is the most talented artist I've ever met.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so if he's saying great work, I hope you understand what that means. I hope you understand what that means. So, because if he didn't think it was great work, he go, "Oh yeah, I saw what you did."
Right. Yeah. I never give false compliments when it comes to art. Because growing up in mean old Brooklyn, if you weren't good, we said it. And I had to learn to not say nothing. As far as I could go. I couldn't get all the way to lie. I made my way to silence.
Yeah. So it's real. It's
good. It's good that you're doing art. Is as far as I.
Yeah, that's a circle and everything.
you did it.
Yeah. So
no,
yeah,
good
but
work, man. That's I'm really glad to see you putting up work like that.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. So yeah, so we can take 5 questions from there, but before we get into those questions, we're gonna hit oh, you didn't take no time, Razor. We all good. We ain't got no
man. It's related. It's 2K related.
It's 2K related. But yeah, so we're gonna do the questions that we got from Ask Us Bro on Twitter, and then if you guys got questions in there, we'll take, like I said, we'll take 5. All right, so let's jump into this first question. Let me make sure I'm going back not too far. Okay, Mikey from who is at Cargill 33 says, why do sports games get away with pay to win by proxy microtransactions without much pushback from their player base, while non-sports games struggle? Example, FIFA Ultimate Team packs versus Battlefront 2 loot boxes. I'm going to say, I think that you might just be missing the feedback or the negative feedback that sports games get, because 2K gets throttled on a daily basis for microtransactions. Madden takes some beatings for it too.
Another thing I'll say is it is pay to win in a certain sense. But it's pay to win or grind to win. But the thing is, the model is after Magic the Gathering, right? Or Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. These card games where they were basically loot boxes that you would buy in the store, and depending on how good you got it, how good you got your pack, that's how good it was. But at the lower level, it's pay to win. But eventually, everybody has good cards, and it's really about how you create and play your deck. So it's pay to win at the lower level, but at the upper level, you're expected to all have good cards, and it really comes down to how you play. So that's the idea behind these modes. How they execute it varies from company to company.
Yeah, I think it's the other thing is, I think the voices are louder with non-sports games, because I really actually think that fans of non-sports games and non-sports game communities better understand their power as consumers. The Star Wars fan base said, we ain't liking it, we ain't buying it. Bam. And that's it. Y'all can sit up and argue about what's right and what's wrong, But us as the consumer have spoken by saying we are not buying it.
And the problem is that Park and Pro-Am aren't pay to win, really.
Yeah.
So, and that's a large contingent of your base. And neither is my league pay to win. So
Yeah.
what you have is you have a pay to win mode inside a much larger sphere.
Yeah. And you know, the thing of it is that my team is my team is pay to you know what my team is? My team is I don't know. I won't go as far as to say it's pay to win. It kind of is.
So let me ask you a straight up question.
Yeah.
Is there a situation in my team
Mhm.
where a very, very skilled player is losing to inferior players because of the cards on a regular basis?
I I don't know that that happens as much as two relatively equal players play, and a person with much better cards just destroys a person who they might either be just a little bit better than or not better than at all, but it's the gap isn't huge. Because I think if there is a situation where I'm 10 times better than you, even if my cards aren't quite as good, I can still probably beat you.
Yeah.
But when it's anywhere close, it
Th-
comes down to the cards.
So now, and then this is my second question. Is the my team economy such that you have to buy cards to get a good deck, or is it such that people who grind are going to get good cards?
I think it's I think it's okay, let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're asking, is it to the point where if you spend more money, you get better cards?
No, because there's a threshold, right?
Okay.
There's good deck, and then there's an embarrassment of riches where I have all the options in the world.
Uh-huh.
I don't care about that. I care about the baseline level of good deck. Can you get a good deck without paying money?
Yes.
Then I understand what you mean by pay to win.
It's in the middle there. It's right in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. And the issue is this is based off of another model that you see in other games like Hearthstone and what have you. So people aren't going to go at 2K first necessarily because their microtransactions are all over the place. And
Mhm.
Park and Pro Am, which are essentially the same mode, are still bigger than my team.
Mhm.
And so the microtransaction attention for 2K goes towards 1,000 VC haircuts, 250,000 VC megaphones, 60,000 VC skateboards. That's what people talk about first a lot of times, more so than, my team.
Yeah, you know, the thing of it is like, okay, it's like Junior's my team is 50 times better than mine. Like he's got
Mhm.
pink diamonds and all. He doesn't have any Galaxy Opals, but he's got pink diamonds. I think he might have 2 or 3 pink diamonds, and then he has a bunch of diamonds. He has barely spent any money or any of my money on it. He's barely spent any of it, right? And he got all of this because he knows how to work the auction house,
Right,
and he uses his my team points, right?
right.
And that's how he gets packs. And he goes and buys the specific people that he wants, right?
Mhm.
With the my team points. So he very rarely spends anything, and his team is comparable to just about anybody that you'll come across.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever really gotten anything big from me giving him. I think the best card he's ever gotten for me giving him money for VC is a diamond Kevin Love. And
Mhm.
that's maybe like the 6th or 7th or maybe 8th best card he's ever had.
Yeah.
So, and I've actually spent money on
Mhm.
it because my whole plan is okay, I'll do videos and I'll
Right.
share it with everybody. And it's kind of like a cool little just overall investment in all of my
Yeah.
entertainment and the whole nine, right? I've never had a pink diamond.
Mhm. Mhm.
I got like 6 diamond cards now, but I've never had a pink diamond. And one of the diamonds I got today because I got it when they gave a locker code for LeBron today.
So then let me ask you, would the prognosis be don't spend no money?
It's because many my team people never spend money. They
Right.
do everything with my team points and then they just grind. And if they are going to use anything on VC, what they do is they'll play something else, another mode in the game that is a VC accruing mode, and then they'll just bring that over there. But some people who play my career and my team, their rule is VC goes to my career to build my character. My team points is how I improve my collection in that mode. And that's a good thing. Now, I personally have fallen more in love with my team than my career. I probably played 1 or 2 times in my career in the last 2 months. Every time I pick up 2K now, I'm doing something with a roster,
Hmm.
doing something with a play now online. I might touch a little my league in there, but I'm doing the roster for my league. But everything else is me grinding as my team because I this year I really like it.
Yeah.
This is the first year I've ever really, really liked it. So um it's I don't think that it's pay to win. I think what happens is you get impatient
Right.
and you don't want to do the grind thing. But I do think that 2K has done a good job in putting enough things in there to earn my team points for you
Yeah.
not to have to spend money.
I think both things are true if I say these two statements.
Mhm.
2K is too stingy with VC.
Right.
You do not need VC to have the experience you want. I have three 90s in 2K
Mhm.
that I did not spend any VC on. Now, the other ones, I didn't buy the VC, but I got the special edition, right? So
Okay.
that still counts. But just the characters that I had no intention of playing real pro-am with, I just wanted to see how the build felt.
Right.
I was able to get them to a 90 in a weekend with nothing.
Yeah.
And these weren't even the ideal builds to do that. We covered it on a old show about how
Yeah.
post character or a sharpshooter, you don't have to spend VC because all you need is one stat and the character is basically finished. Um, and this wasn't even that. This was well-rounded characters, which is the worst kind of character to make. And I still don't need to spend VC because the game's just not that hard. You can go in there once your characters are 71, they're playing 85% what they're going to play like. And once they become an 83, that's everything else is just icing on the cake in terms of
Mhm.
the character. It's really about the badges more so than the ratings. And the badges you can't buy, you have to grind. So I think 2K is stingy with the VC and they make you not want to spend VC, which is I think they're not helping them.
Yeah.
I think they should have the prices lower so you're eager to spend.
Yeah.
I think their economy makes you stingy across the board.
Yes. I would agree. It makes you penny pinch
Yes, and they need to loosen up to find that balance where you want to spend VC, you're encouraged to buy VC, you're encouraged to have a lot of things.
because you start thinking of, man, I got 50,000 VC. You know all the things I could buy with that, as
Right.
opposed to I got 50,000 VC. I can only get 2 things.
Correct. And then you spend that 50,000 VC and you feel like the game is giving you a lot of stuff for free and you don't feel so bad about I'm going to throw down $5, $10 because I just want this other thing right now. That's what gets other people in other games is you spend a little, you get something that makes you satisfied and then you spend more. 2K is very for me it's very unsatisfying to buy VC. So I don't buy VC,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, because I don't have a problem with buying VC as conceptually, right? Because, but what I have a problem with is if I don't value what I get in return.
Mhm.
Because I don't mind paying for my entertainment. I think a lot of people are caught up in the whole thing with video games used to cost $59.99. You got everything you wanted to get in the game, blah blah blah. Games are not what they used to be. They're different. They're more advanced. There's far more layers now than there ever were. And when you buy a game at this point, especially a game like 2K, which like you've mentioned before, is really an MMO, it's you already have an understanding this is not a single purchase.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm literally paying for a service now. That's what this 2K is, a service more than it is a single game,
Correct.
you know. And when you're paying for a service, it is an ongoing thing.
And honestly, I think more important than how much you pay. I know this is like people have different levels of money, right? Obviously.
Mhm.
But the thing is, more important than how much money the game asks you to pay for what is what those hours feel like. Is it
Mhm.
enjoyable to play the game? Because there's games that I've played that I've put a lot of hours into, but the game didn't get fun until after I put in 100 hours.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that feeling. Here's 100 hours of grindy crap. Now the real game begins. And there's other games where I've spent 45 hours and every single minute of that game was pure joy.
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
say Spider-Man or Mass Effect or Skyrim. Every minute I spend in that game is fantastic. 2K is not as bad as some games. Like
No.
say Destiny, 25 junk hours before it gets even a little bit fun.
Yeah. I
Like
think I honestly, I think Anthem is that way too.
oh, for
Because
sure,
there's
Anthem
a
for sure.
there's a lot of people who are saying that the more they've played it, that they have really started to enjoy it.
Right.
But it killed me in the first 2 hours, and I
Yeah.
said, I'm gonna rip my lips off if I have to continue to play this. And I was like,
And it's really 30 hours of that.
Yeah.
It's 30 hours of nothing's gonna die. And
Yeah.
then you get to, masterwork gear. Now it feels like a normal video game again.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think it's really how do the hours feel? I think companies put too much emphasis on how many hours there are. And I
Mhm.
think players put too much emphasis on how much they spend versus how
Mhm.
much time they spend. Because the bottom line is if you spend 500 or more hours in a video game and you only spend $60, there is no other form of entertainment, maybe outside of buying a basketball and going to the park,
Yeah.
where you can get that much entertainment for that little money.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yep. All right, let's move on to the next question. And this one comes from Devin95, Bull Saints 95. And he says, what are your favorite all-time boxing fights? Um, I am a boxing fanatic and have been for as long as I can remember. I'm telling my age here. The first fight I ever saw live was in 1981. Marvin Hagler against John the Beast Mugabe. And it was literally a fantastic fight. So in a sense, it spoiled me because I thought they were all going to be like that. And that wasn't the case. But that fight was fantastic in so many ways. It had drama, it had a humongous big time champion who seemed unbeatable, who the announcers made seem unbeatable, fighting a guy who was 38-0 with 38 knockouts, I think at the time. John Mugabe was just destroying everybody. And so it was just a fantastic fight. Hagler wins the fight. That one, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, the first fight was one of the greatest fights ever. That's actually also 1981, I believe. Um, Gotti Ward 1 and 2, um, Pacquiao Marquez 3, um, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, 3 of the best rounds of boxing you'll ever see. I mean, if you want to see literally like somebody playing Fight Night Champion 3 or Fight Night Round 3 in real life, that's about the closest thing as you're gonna get to it because it's an absolute slugfest for 3 rounds. Um, Moving a little closer to now today, the last really great fight I saw was Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury. It was a great fight. It was a really, really good fight, especially by heavyweight standards where you don't see a bunch of great fights all the time. That was a fantastic fight. Those are the ones that come to mind. Obviously, I know there's something I'm forgetting. Some fight that was great that I'm neglecting Barrera Morales one great fight. Um, those are the ones that pop into my mind initially.
Yeah, for me it's Sugar Ray and Hagler. Um, I'm a little younger than Mazique, and so those fights that happened in '81 and stuff like that, I saw them all on tape.
Yeah.
'Cause my dad had like tapes of all the great fights and stuff like that, and I would watch those tapes over and over again. And so Hagler Hearns was another big one, but yeah, Sugar Ray versus Hearns. I'm so sorry, Sugar Ray versus Hagler was definitely one way, way, way up there. Um, Definitely Roy Jones Jr. versus Ruiz.
Hmm.
That one I liked a lot. Like I really, really enjoyed that fight tremendously. Um, because I didn't know if Roy Jones would be able to go up in weight and take that fight. And I felt like he was just so smart. I just loved everything about the fight. It because he didn't get a chance to fight a ton of great opponents. By what people say in boxing, like a lot of Roy Jones fights was the Roy Jones highlight reel. You know what I mean? And that was a situation where I really got a chance to see him, um, you know, just really go to town and figure and
Yeah, do something extraordinary. Even though John Ruiz wasn't a great fighter, it wasn't necessarily the opponent. It was what was what Roy was doing.
correct. Um, and then I don't know. I want to throw in a Hopkins fight, to be honest with you. Because I like out of all of the defensive fighters, he's my favorite because I loved watching him break guys down. But I just don't know which one.
Hopkins Trinidad was a really good fight.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of them. He's got a bunch.
Hopkins De La Hoya was a absolute
That's why it's hard to
masterpiece.
pick. That's
Yeah.
why it's hard. So
And
so for me, the last
yeah.
fight would be pick a good Hopkins fight, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I kind of enjoy him equally because I just love the way he works. And even though Mayweather is like the quote unquote greatest defensive fighter of all time, my favorite to watch and the guy that to me that's like the instruction manual for what makes a great defensive fighter is Hopkins, and he shows it in his best fights.
Yeah, there's some people definitely before Floyd that would that say that's a joke that Floyd's the best defensive. There's people who say that, Willie Pep, some other people, they're like, "Pff, please look, but it's always going to be that way. But Floyd's and Pernell Whitaker to me is the greatest defensive fighter. I mean,
Hmm.
Pernell just like, I mean, the usage of changing levels of avoiding shots with simple things like crouches and it like doing that. I mean, defensively, I think he was the best. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I those guys are all in the kind of in a similar category. Okay, let's see what we got next. We got this one comes from Breeze. Uh, his handle is who the F is Breeze. Well, you are somebody, Breeze. I know that. I know that. He says, do you think that Apex Legends will have a new map released? And should they charge for it? If so.
I don't think they're gonna go new map. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. Not especially not this soon because the game is a very very high skill
Hmm.
gap game.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different classes in the game, and it's a team based game. And I think the game is going to I think they're going to let people figure out the game. I think they have so big of a player base that they're in the collecting data phase
Hmm.
of what the casuals like, what the quote unquote pro players like, balance changes they need to make. I think they're going to be focused on that. They're going to be focused on new heroes. They're going to be focused on new skins way before they change the map. Because the thing about Apex Legends is mobility in that game is one of the highest skill gap elements.
Hmm.
And until the player base masters mobility, they don't need a new map. Quite
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't play Apex Legends that often, but I don't. It feels a little bit early for that a new map.
Yeah.
I think you like you said, you got to let people master a map to the point where they're like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. Like I'm ready to play on another map. And I
And
don't
you know
think,
what they want.
yeah, yeah, you don't even know what they're looking for in a map yet because people are legit still learning the game.
Hmm.
So I think it's a little bit early for that.
And
So
like we said on the show, I don't think that Apex. I don't think they expected Apex to turn into the biggest game in gaming.
right now, yeah, it is.
And if you looked at their marketing of Anthem, if
Mhm.
they thought Apex was going to be as big as it was,
They
they would
wouldn't
not have released it the day
at the
before
same
Anthem
time.
came
Yeah,
out. Like
there's no
that
way.
was, it was so close to Anthem's release date, and it is a team-based shooter game. Even though it's a battle royale versus a loot shooter, it's still you going in with a couple of other people to accomplish a goal. And they like as many problems as Anthem has.
Yeah,
It don't help having a game to create your own Fortnite to beat it up.
yeah, yeah.
That's not ideal. So I think so, and to point it out is to say they're taking it all in before
Mhm.
they make monster changes like that. So I
Yeah,
wouldn't expect anything soon.
yeah, because they really have no reason to move fast right now.
Hmm.
They're in a great position. So, all right. The next question also comes from Breeze. and he says, "What is the best soundtrack in sports gaming history?"
Ooh,
Like I know the one for me.
the one for you. Okay, so for me, I'm gonna have to say Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
That's a sports game.
Oh, see, it says sports game.
Yeah,
I
sports
thought you
gaming
were gonna say
history.
game.
Yeah,
Sports gaming history.
yeah.
Oh man, I don't like none of them soundtracks.
Actually, I
Oh,
was
I know. Is F Zero a sports game?
I think so.
The
Yeah.
F Zero, yeah, F
Yeah.
Zero for sure. F Zero's
I
fire.
have no idea what the soundtrack sound like on F-Zero.
Oh, you need to find out, man.
Oh my God.
They got that slick jazz for you. You need to get on there,
Oh Lord help us. No,
man.
I don't think it would do it. I don't think it would do it for me. But for me, it is definitely Fight Night Round 3.
Mhm.
Fight Night Round 3 had some stuff like,
Okay, I'll say this. Fight Night Round 3 had the hype soundtrack.
oh, it was awesome.
I just don't like hip hop like that. I ain't gonna vote for nothing with all that hip hop on there. Like, get me out. I'm in virtual tennis for. Yeah, elevator music, man. I can't take all that hip hop.
Oh my God, it's the soundtrack is a banger. It is a banger. It's got so many swears on there, man. Just mm. Like, I mean, we used to be like ramming with it. Like it was just dope. It was like Fight Night Round 3 had the dopest soundtrack. Like
Yeah, I would say Fight
actually
Night Round 3 is probably the hypest.
Actually, there's somebody in the chat. Actually, is my best friend in the world, a friend I've known the longest in my life. Literally, I've known him since second grade. We've been friends since second grade. He's in the chat right now, and he just put yes in the chat, and the reason being is because we spent so many hours fighting each other on
Uh-huh.
fight night, and we knew them songs like we had them joints on a CD in the car. Like we knew them songs, like, and they usually the songs that are in games are kind of garbage. Like, but there was several songs on there that like we would have, if we were making a CD, we would have put a couple of them songs on the CD.
Yeah. You know
So
what? I have to say, a lot of times, in the past, like in the past, Madden has had a soundtrack where I always felt like, man, the EA people, they got some DJs in there, man. Like they would just have those hype songs. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, I thought Fight Night was the best of that.
but like I say Madden does a really good job of hitting several genres.
Yeah.
They don't go all hip hop ever. Like, so I think for that they do get some love for that. But yeah, man, no, that Fight Night Round 3 was that deal.
Definitely F Zero. Let's do
That
that.
F-Zero, no, I'm
You
sorry.
you don't even know what this
It
music
just
is
don't
like.
even. I looked at the graphics when I just pulled it up real quick, and
Classic.
I
You
can't
had to look.
imagine.
You didn't know F Zero off the top of your head.
Yes, you I did not. I
Oh,
did not know.
so you use a Genesis kid.
Yeah, I actually was. I didn't play Super Nintendo.
Playing that Holyfield boxing.
Yeah, you know what? That game sucked, but I played it all the time.
Streets of Rage.
Oh, the Streets. I never liked Streets of Rage. I always liked Double Dragon more, and I thought it was like a bad ripoff of Double Dragon.
Uh-huh.
I never liked. You know, they're supposed to be redoing Streets of Rage, so
Yeah, they redoing that. I was all about Road Rash and Shinobi 3. That was
yeah.
it.
I like. You know what I used to like a game. Do you remember River City Ransom?
I never played River City Ransom.
Oh, that game. It was literally a horrible game because it was about gang violence. It was about gang violence. It was about gang violence. But it was so dope. It was so dope. It was off the chain. But all right, let's move on to the next question. The next question comes from, who is it? Where did it go? Which way did he go? All right. Oh, he must have knew we were going to talk about Fight Night. So this one's also from who the F is Breeze. And Breeze says, if a new Fight Night game is in the works, what things would you want it to have that the previous versions did not? I would like for it to have a sim mode, not make the entire game sim, because if the entire game sim is going to sell 11 copies, and I know that, but I would like a pro mode that is ultra sim, And that is where the esport is built out of it, because I don't think that a boxing game can really survive and do what it really needs to do unless it has an esports component. And I think it needs that esports component needs to be built from the beginning, from the ground up. And I think that that happens in a sim mode. Now there could be an esport that comes from the arcade mode too. I'm sure that'll have a audience, as long as it's balanced is all it really is the requirement. Doesn't have to be realistic, just let it be balanced. So I think that's there. But I think boxing fans would appreciate a mode where the margin for error was similar to what it is in an actual boxing match. You can boxing and MMA, combat sports people, but boxing and MMA, they're the only sports in the world where you can dominate an entire contest and lose it in a second. It's the only sports like that. Like, you can be up by 35 points, and if you're up by 35 points in basketball, I don't care if a dude jumps and dunks from the three-point line. You're still only they're only now they're down 33. I don't care how awesome the dunk was. It just, if you're dominating, you're dominating. In combat sports, there is that element that separates it from all other sports. If you get clocked the right way by the right person, it's done. And I think and there's never really been a boxing game or a mixed martial arts game that has really captured that dynamic. And I think one of the reasons that you shy away from it is because people are playing a video game more so than they're playing the sport. And I understand that, because it is a video game. But I would love to see a mode that offers that experience, that opportunity for a one hitter quitter. Um, I also think that you need to eliminate the usage of fighter licenses, period. I think you need to do your homework to find out what it is that you can do from a creative player suite or creative fighter suite. Put that out there, um, and have the essentially just have the community crowdsource your roster. Find out where the legalities begin and end with that. And honestly, man, the solid gameplay. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you're saying about, you know, the modes and all of that stuff. For me, it's really about styles making fights.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't, I think the one thing that boxing games have been really bad about, and the UFC game still needs work in this area, is the footwork.
y'all, absolutely.
If the thing about competition, this is across the board. Competition is about spacing, right?
Hmm.
And the way you react to the space that is created and your positioning usually determines the winner and the loser in most competitions,
Hmm.
right? So
Yep.
the easy thing is, the reason Steph Curry is so great and probably the second greatest point guard of all time is
You've been
because,
listening to Andre Iguodala too long.
no, I've thought that for a while. I've said that so many times on the show.
Yeah.
But even though I think a serious case can be made for Isaiah Thomas, to have that conversation. But the reason people make that argument is because Steph individually changes the spacing opportunities of the defense.
Changes the whole game.
NBA defense looks one way because you're guarding these positions, which is around the central idea that getting under the basket is good for you and bad for me. Steph Curry says getting across half court is good for me and bad for you. This changes the spacing. The thing about boxing as a sport is there's two, just at a base level, you can say there's three different kinds of boxers. Boxers who want to change space all the time,
Hmm.
boxers who excel in close space, and boxers who excel in farther away space. Already, that's three different fighters: the inside power guy, the rangy jab guy, and the mobile guy.
Hmm.
And no boxing game has given us that experience. I don't care how arcadey it is in the sense of realism, because realism is relative to the boxing era, talent, and division you're talking about, and how inclusive of any of that you want to be. You can make a realistic boxing game that's only based off of what happens in heavyweights, and it would be realistic in sim. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying in the virtual boxing world, I want the virtual version of what has been created in the sports world. Because one of the things we always talk about when it comes to sim is it takes two sim people to create a sim experience. The gaming company can't make it sim. You need two people who balance each other out. Because guess what? If I create a boxing game where if both people were as skilled relatively as Hopkins and Tony, then they would have a Hopkins and Tony type fight, then that's going to happen. But if one of those people is as skilled as whoever boxer you don't like, right? Let's say not even a professional boxer, then Bernard Hopkins can turn into Mike Tyson because of that person's level of skill and athleticism and knowledge.
Mhm.
So it's not always going to be apparent that the game is sim at the outset. And this happens all the time with fighting games. The first couple of weeks of a fighting game are usually no indication of what it's going to look like at Evo because the people have to learn how to play.
Mhm.
And in order for a boxing game to get there to the Mount Olympus of being sim, it first has to have the opportunities for style and space manipulation, space domination, space control. That has to happen first. After that happens, we'll see a sim emerge from that environment.
I totally agree. I 100% agree with that. It is not possible on any boxing game that I've ever seen to kind of craft a style.
Right.
And it's always everybody's essentially doing the same thing.
Hmm.
It just comes down to who does it better.
Which is why it always distills down to people spamming for a knockout.
Well, okay. Fight Night Champion, what it came down to is who can time their counters the best.
Yeah, yeah. Time encounters, stamina bar manipulation,
That's
and
that's
combos.
where it came down to. Because essentially when you watch two super high level Fight Night Champion players play, it's a lot of bam, bam, and
Yeah.
everybody's literally fighting the same. And if you try to incorporate another style, I don't care how good you might be at it, and I don't even care if you're controlling a character who's supposed to be good at the style you're trying to use, it's not gonna work
Hmm.
because it's this the meta for the game is this style. And what I think you're saying is that the meta should be dictated by the style matchup and
Yes.
the execution of that style matchup.
And in order to have that, you need to give the players the power to control space.
Yes, it's about I've always I explained this to someone who is supposed to be making a boxing game, so we'll see what happens. But it's about the speed in which you can backpedal, the speed in which you can move laterally. That's what
Mhm.
it's about. Until somebody gets to a point where they're able to um, convey a fighter's ability to move backwards and sideways with any level of speed, you're going to have a hard time having anything besides a phone booth type of fight
Mhm.
ultimately.
Mhm.
That's what it's going to be. So yeah, I definitely I think you spot on with that one. All right, our next question comes from Paul. She's Apples 23, and he says, "Is the three-point shooting from?" I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't know if we're gonna get to these 5 questions because I didn't realize we still had questions here. So he says, "Is the three-point shooting from Danny Green a concern for the Raptors heading into the playoffs?" So I don't know if you noticed, Danny Green's shooting is taking a little bit of a dip. um, I don't know what the reason exactly is, to be totally honest. I don't get a chance to see the Raptors that much. I see them sometimes, but um, yeah, I mean, he struggled a little bit, but I don't know. He's been hot lately, though. So I don't. Well, I mean, he had a tough game Tuesday, but he's kind of been hot over the last week. So I don't know if I'm not sure I know if I know where Paul's going with that. I mean, he's shooting 43% for the year, and he's been hot lately. So I'm not sure. I don't know what he was basing that on.
Yeah, I'm just gonna answer the question with no.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's not for any of those reasons. Because look, if your shooters get into slumps, that can cost you. But the thing is, Danny Green is a 3 and D guy. Their defensive schemes can go up to excellent. I think their concern is further integrating Jeremy Lin and Marc Gasol.
Yeah.
Jeremy Lin is a productive NBA player replacing Fred VanVleet.
Yeah.
And if they can get Jeremy fully acclimated into their system and get their rotations right and fully benefit off of Gasol, then they're in a really good situation. So I think that's their concern. Danny Green shooting, the thing of it is he's not a Clay Thompson where you need him to score, you know, at least 18 points per playoff game in order to be getting value off of him.
No, you just need him to space the floor.
Yeah, they're not going to leave Danny Green open. And if they leave Danny Green open and he's cold, he's probably going to get hot. So, you
Yeah.
know, that's the and also it's not like Danny Green can only shoot 3-pointers too. He's not like a, Luke Cornett where the only thing he's out there for is hitting threes. Yeah, he's a 3 and D guy,
See,
but
you just mentioned the Knicks for no reason.
I didn't mention the Knicks. I just mentioned
A
one
player for the
dimensional
Knicks.
a one-dimensional player.
You mentioned the player for the Knicks,
One
and you
yeah.
you did that. And see, it's important that I call you out when you do these things, because you're not going to allow me to have a Bulls conversation
We
without some
talked
sort of
we
yeah.
talked for 75 minutes about the Chicago Bulls today.
We absolutely did not. We absolutely did not. That is an absolute fallacy, and I'm offended that you said it. So don't.
Anyway, um, Danny Green he brings a lot to the game. He's a very intelligent player. If he misses a couple of shots, it's not a big deal. Danny Green can go cold and they can still win. It's really he needs to get to Draymond territory where people are leaving him open, and as Brian said, he's ruining the spacing. I don't see that happening.
No.
They have shooting coming from a lot of places, and Toronto's 3-point shooting isn't the only thing you have to worry about with that team. So yeah, I just don't think that's going to be a major factor. I think Danny Green missing shots in crucial moments will hurt them, of course.
I'm honestly, I'm not sure where Paul was coming from with this question, because I'm looking and I'm like, okay, so he asked this question 2 days ago, right?
Mhm.
And I think he might have looked at one game and kind of got a little weird worried about it, because on Tuesday, Danny Green shot 4 for 13 from three, which
Mhm.
is not a great night,
Not
but
great.
it's not like, oh my god. But if you look at him, like, so far this month across 3 games, he's shooting 43% from 3-point range.
Right.
So
I mean,
I,
and that's his average. So,
yeah, I don't think there's a problem. And last month in February, he made 49% of his threes.
and it also goes back to what I said. I think playoff teams, the way they perform in the first 5 to 6 weeks after the All Star break, isn't the best sample size for anything happening in the NBA. Generally, it's the last few weeks before the season ends that you see how teams are really going into it. Because if they're going to rest people, they're going to rest them now. If they're going to take teams lightly, they're going to take them lightly now. Like, there's a lot of odd results that happen in this post All Star malaise until teams get it together and they're kind of ready for the playoffs, especially since some of these seedings are either locked up or spiritually locked up, meaning you don't care if you go first or second in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah,
It don't. You know what I'm saying?
it don't
Like,
matter.
no, Milwaukee's more concerned about resting Giannis's knee than they are about getting the number 1 seed. So they're gonna drop a game to a Phoenix or something like that. Like, so nothing. I wouldn't get too alarmed about anything that happens. He could go 1 for 20 in the next 2 games. I don't think Toronto's gonna give a shit unless that
Yeah.
happens over the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna cut off our questions right there from the ones that are already stored up, because as I look at them, they're fairly evergreen. So I know that we can attack them next week. But I'll do one more question, and this one is actually in the chat from Big Heck Money. I appreciate you coming through, bro. I don't think I can remember seeing your name in the comments. So if you are new, we really do appreciate you bopping in. If you're not new, I still appreciate you anyway. Uh, fist air internet fist bump. So he says, do you think that the Celtics are screwed with the curse of Kyrie's divaness, or are they playing possum for the playoffs? I don't think they're playing no possum.
Nah.
I think they are legit in shambles. Because the same way that I think that LeBron is a horrible loser, I think Kyrie is a similar style loser, and it's even more so that way now because he got used to winning. And I think that if Kyrie wasn't their star, they would be able to handle this hiccup in the road that they're in right now. Look, and now blowing out the Warriors helps, definitely helps. But I do think that overall, this little hiccup is a little bit more difficult because of what you mentioned, the diva-ness of Kyrie. I think Kyrie is a bit of a he's turned into that quite a bit. I mean, I think 2K putting him on the cover, him hitting clutch shots, and people saying this and that, got him outside his body. I really do. I really think I do. I think that. So I think he's not the ideal superstar to be going through this kind of thing with, but neither is LeBron, which is why he's barely putting a hand up on people driving straight up his face.
See, now I can't stand that this is the position that you put me in to
Is that
defend
what I did?
Kyrie, because I'm usually the person who is talking about that people overrate him a bit. Um, I think this is a bit taking Kyrie's attitude and putting too much importance on it.
Mm,
Because first and foremost, the reports out of the Celtics locker room is that he actually has a good relationship with a lot of the players and the younger players. And on the court, when they lose, it's not actually because of Kyrie. It's not like Kyrie's throwing the ball out of the bounds. And even the story about Kyrie dominating the basketball, it's not actually true. Yes, Kyrie will have some plays, and particularly at the end of games, where he'll pat the rock. But a lot of times throughout long, long stretches of the Celtics games, he's moving the ball a lot for a guy who's supposed to have the game that he's supposed to have. It's not like he's taking people out of their game with the way he's playing. And he's playing really, he's in a lot of ways, it's the best he's ever played.
mhm.
And at the end of games, I think he's the best clutch player in the game. And he has won them many games this year with great play at the end of games.
I think he is definitely a top 2 or 3 clutch scorer at the
Good
end of the game.
enough.
Yeah.
Good enough. And he's made some great passes at the end of games too.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just offensively, I think he's a
yeah.
top 2 or 3.
Well, he actually beat Oklahoma City with a steal. And it was risky. It was a very risky play because if he didn't get his hand on that ball, that was a 3-point shot. But
Yeah.
they still won the game with a steal. It was a gamble. My thing is Boston, they just don't play well with Kyrie. That's it. Like sometimes it's just about basketball. Like they literally look different with Kyrie off the court when he doesn't play games. And I think part of the reason it's been such a topic of discussion is because it's really hard to figure out. It's one thing when a guy plays bad. It's one thing when a guy's efficient. It's one thing when a guy makes people is like making people around him worse. It's down to the point that sometimes guys are just missing open shots when they're playing with Kyrie.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right? Like
it's because, he really doesn't fit the system.
I think that's what it is. And so I don't think it's his divaness. I think this is one of the things that he gets blamed for, even though I don't like his attitude. So this is not me saying I like his attitude. It's just about what is the role of his attitude. He's been on a team for 2 years. Now he didn't just get there this year. The biggest variable with them is not Kyrie Irving. People talk about like Kyrie Irving didn't play last year. Kyrie Irving was there most of last year. He got hurt at the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
So all of their success last year, most of it happened with Kyrie Irving, right?
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I do think they play better when he's in a bit lesser of a role as a scorer. And their 18-game win streak was his individual worst stretch of the season in a lot of ways. And as he got better, they actually started to drop more games, which goes to the thing of they just don't fit him that great.
They don't.
And that's just what it comes down to. Now, here's the thing though. The variable is Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward, there's two variables actually. One, there's other players I think funking up the locker room because they're not as popular as Kyrie Irving. They're not getting the blame. So I think guys like Terry Rozier pout. I
Jaylen
think
Brown.
I think Jaylen Brown might be pouting. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I think
Mhm.
Baines being injured for a time hurt the team. They act like they're losing their strong man just didn't mean anything to them. That
Yeah,
hurt.
yeah, you can't lose the Viking.
Correct. Al Horford playing well. I mean, playing poorly throughout the first half of the season. He's playing better now. So, and you see, and that's a nightmare matchup for the Sixers because he is the direct counter to Joel Embiid. Apparently, I mean, Joel Embiid looks terrible playing.
I don't understand. It's funny how somebody who seemingly wouldn't match up well with him
Al
gives him
Horford
problems.
is an outstanding defender when he's on his game. And when he's super on his game, he's also hitting a lot of shots. And that, as a big man, what he's doing is he's making you defend him in a place where you don't want to defend him. And he's super strong and super smart,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
But
So
I look at
this is a guy who
Embiid's,
was the best player on 55, almost 60 win Hawks teams with no serious stars on it.
and he was the best player on the team last year. Honestly, when
And the team before that with Isaiah Thomas. He
yeah,
was the MVP of that team, what most people consider, despite the fact that Isaiah Thomas was putting up 30.
yeah, I think he
So,
did the most.
right. So the thing is, Al Horford's picked up his game. Gordon Hayward is starting to show signs. I have thought it to be absurd that people are judging Gordon Hayward. And my biggest criticism of the Celtics is that they overreacted to the growth period because it's not like they were terrible. They're just not in their stride yet. And I feel like, yeah, Kyrie's attitude in the media doesn't help because that stuff gets back to the locker room. But there
Mhm.
are other people in there who are pouting too much as well.
Yeah,
And
but I always say, and I tell you this all the time, and this is just how I look at it, that public pouting has and it really depends on who you have in your locker room, but that public pouting, especially when you're a star, has a more significant effect on people because they feel like you're putting them on Front Street, and it feels like you're acting like you're
I
better.
agree with you, but I don't think Kyrie has thrown his teammates under the bus.
Oh, not even nearly as bad as LeBron has this year, I would say.
Correct. If he was worse, it would be different. Kyrie's pouting to the media about what they're saying to him. He's not constantly whining about his teammates. He said some stuff that you could look at in some ways, and he's been a little manipulative. And I don't love it. Like I said, I'm not a huge Kyrie Irving fan, but
Yeah, no.
I don't think this is a situation where Kyrie is some kind of locker room cancer. Every report that's been coming out about Kyrie Irving in the locker room is actually that he's been great, and on the court he's been great. I just don't think that this team is built well around him.
It's not, I mean, it's crazy because he's having his most efficient season
Yeah,
and
best playmaking season,
easy.
and
And
he's playing more
every
defense too.
yeah, he is, but it's just not translating the way he or most people thought. If you would have told people that Kyrie Irving was going to have his most efficient scoring and playmaking season and playing better defense than he normally has played, and that the Celtics were going to be disappointing, everybody would have told you it was crazy.
But and even with that, like to call the Celtics, this is why I say it's overreacting. They've won 40 games. The best team in the league has won 49 games. When you have a player coming back from a career-threatening, totally gruesome injury, and most of your cast is young, and you lose your backup center, that 9 games is a fair, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially when the rest of the league got better. It's not like this happened in a vacuum. Milwaukee's way better. Toronto's way better. Indiana's way better. And they lost Oladipo now, but he was there for a time. And that was also a factor. And the Sixers are way better. So
I think what
I think it's an
people
overreaction.
yeah, I think the majority of this talk happened when they lost 4 in a row. And then it wasn't just that they lost 4 in a row. There was a bad loss in there to the Bulls.
Yeah, but even in that 4 in a row, some of those were close games.
Yeah, well,
Immediately after the All-Star break.
yeah,
Overreaction.
it was they lost by the Bucks to 1, and they were on the road. You lose by the Bucks on the road to by 1, it's not a bad loss. But when you follow that up by losing by 10 to the Bulls, and Zach LaVine goes nuts. And this was right at the beginning of the Bulls starting to play better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you get blown out the next game by the Raptors,
Mm-hmm.
and then you lose to the Blazers after that. So now people are worried. Now people are worried. And one of those losses, I think it was to the Rockets. I think it was they lost by 11, but they gave up like a 20-point lead en route to it.
Yeah.
So there was some reason for some panic there, or at least some concern. And
Yeah, but that's my point though. If you say, hey, we got to get it together, we got to tighten some things up, that's fine. We can't let this go on. We got to get back on it. That's fine. But acting like the sky is falling when
see,
you've won 40 games and you've got a 60 something % win record and and again, it's not like your team is on equal playing field to these other teams, because you're talking about incorporating a major piece who is definitely not going to be 100% until at least 16 months after his injury.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a major piece. And the irony of all of this is that if Gordon Hayward is healthy, he is the best complementary piece to Kyrie Irving on that team.
Yo, very good, because he's the kind of the do it all type of a guy who's
Consistent shooter,
got a
cut
good enough
the
offense.
lane,
Yeah, yeah,
create his own shot, go to the basket, play a little defense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
so they had to pay a penalty to work to get an all-star back.
yeah.
And they
Yeah.
acted like the penalty didn't have to be paid and crying about it. I think the crying about it is the issue. I think the losses, there's very few losses in the Boston Celtics season where I go, oh, that's seriously alarming. Like, they don't work super great with Kyrie versus how they look off the court, although they probably are about the same level of team. It's just not adding up to something that's better than both, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
Celtics with Kyrie have about the record that they have. The Celtics without Kyrie have about the record that they have. The general thought is the Celtics with Kyrie are better in the playoffs than the Celtics without Kyrie.
And that's really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Kevin Durant said they'll be fine when the playoffs hit. I think that's possible because once you start scouting those same matchups all the time, you're not taking all these road trips. It's not this different stories all the time, trade talk drama all the time. The playoffs usually dominate the story as well as your activity. And I think Boston is the kind of team that favors them when they and also the more Gordon Hayward plays, the better he gets. And that favors them on the court because he Gordon Hayward is the second best player on their team if he's healthy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think well, Al's having a tough stretch here and there, and of course Jason Hayward is still it's not Jason Hayward.
Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum may become better than Gordon Hayward, but
Yeah.
there is no evidence that he's better than prime Gordon Hayward. Like
Well,
there's
yeah,
none. There,
I would agree with that, but we don't 100% know
oh
that.
no, that's why I say if. I say if.
Yeah, yeah,
And the reason I bring up Gordon Hayward is because if you look at his game, particularly the fact that he's a Brad Stevens guy, literally, right, from
yes,
college.
from Butler. Yeah,
But the thing about it is that Gordon Hayward, the intelligence of his knowing where to be on the court,
yeah, and,
Boston would heavily benefit from that.
yeah.
And
Playing off the ball, and which is key if you're Kyrie Irving's teammate.
well, and honestly, it's also making plays too, because Kyrie Irving's a good catch and shoot player. He's not like other ball dominant guards that aren't good in catch and shoot
Yeah, I
situations.
mean, he played with LeBron, so he's obviously going to be excelling at
Right.
catching the suit.
He's good at both, and I don't feel like Kyrie has had an unwillingness to pass. I would criticize that there are times when Kyrie has gone tunnel vision on scoring when he should still pass it to the 3-point line. But I could also criticize that those guys don't shoot well enough, and he makes a lot of those shots. We
He
talked
makes
about
those. He makes tough shots, man.
that's the issue, and I think his teammates, while they are correct in that they play better without him, they would do better to sacrifice and say, bump that for now. Let me be the best that I can be in this system and go for the highest opportunity. Because if they do that, Boston can beat virtually anybody. I don't think they're the favorite to beat anybody, but they can beat anybody.
Yeah, I can't imagine them beating Milwaukee 4 times. But then again, I'm going to be honest with you. If everything clicks for Milwaukee, I don't know that anybody can beat them 4 times.
Milwaukee looks exceptional. I'm getting concerned about Giannis's knee.
Yeah, yeah. Just over. I think they would. I think. I think they would be smart to rest him
Yes.
down the stretch. I mean, I know you haven't locked it completely up from Toronto, but I think they would be smart to rest him. Like, if for me, he's resting after every 2 games for the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think what I would like to see from them is to shut him down the last 5 games of the season and give him a nice long
Is
recovery.
that one of the two things? One of
Yeah,
the two things.
yeah.
You know,
Keep him in rhythm for now so you don't get too out of your stuff. But once you get to that last 2 weeks, shut them down. Give them 2 weeks before the season ends. You get the playoff break, and then you can bring them back in slowly, get them into shape. Whoever you get in the first round, as long as you don't face Brooklyn, you're in no danger whatsoever. So,
I think they still beat Brooklyn
well,
either.
the problem with Brooklyn is Brooklyn can get you into a long series because first of all, Brooklyn is like a little better than people think. They
No, they
have
defend. They defend, and that's the biggest, and
and
they're
they
athletic.
shoot and they shoot
Yeah,
and they just
Joe, yeah,
and the thing is Brooklyn was solid and then they got Karis LeVert back. And
yeah,
Karis LeVert is already looking pretty good.
yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Don't sleep on Brooklyn because it's not as cupcake of a matchup as the other teams below Boston. Like if they get Detroit, they could beat Detroit without Giannis.
They could beat Detroit without Giannis. I think they beat Detroit. I think they beat Brooklyn without Giannis too.
I don't know about that.
I think they beat Brooklyn without
Brooklyn
Giannis.
shoots. So the problem is Brooklyn is the puncher's chance kind of team. But the thing is, they're not only that. Like you said, they defend. I know you don't like D'Angelo Russell.
Nah, I actually, D'Angelo Russell that's more about just his personality, his game. D'Angelo Russell is the truth, man. I mean,
Yeah,
he's very similar to Kyrie, just a little bigger, just taller and left-handed.
he's a better passer than Kyrie though. Like
Yeah, he's a better passer, but
he's a
I'm
more
talking
natural
about in
point
terms of
guard.
creating his shot and being a guy who creates his shot without elite level athleticism, but
Yeah,
still is always able to create enough space to make shots and knock down tough shots and knock down
he's like a
clutch shots.
weird combination offensively of like James Harden and Drew Holiday on the offensive end. And lighter version because he's younger and he hasn't reached that level of James yet on the offensive end. Drew, he's probably a better offensive player than Drew.
He is a better offensive player than Drew.
But the thing is,
Not bad too much, but he is better.
yeah, and I only brought that up because you said he wasn't a needle mover to you. But watching a lot of Brooklyn games, I do think he is a needle mover. I think, but he's a young player, so I think he's become that more.
But
As
I think did I say I don't think I said that recently.
yeah, I mean, this show is only a few episodes
Yeah,
ago.
but we've been talking longer than this show.
No, it was about 3 episodes ago that you said he wasn't a needle mover. But if that's not how you feel now, my thing is that was probably more true of him even just a few weeks ago than post All-Star game, him getting acknowledged and the team winning and being consistent and getting Karis LeVert and Dinwiddie back. Remember, Dinwiddie was out for a little bit. So,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, Brooklyn is not a team you want to be unhealthy against, whereas Miami, Detroit, Charlotte, that's fine. They can, if Giannis is super rusty in the first 2 games back against Charlotte, no worries. If he's super rusty in the first 2 games against Brooklyn, they could find themselves in the 7-game series, which is not what they want to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite there with Brooklyn. I definitely like the beginnings of what's happening.
For sure.
I don't think I'm quite there with where I think that they can push Milwaukee the way
Well,
Milwaukee
I'm
plays.
saying
But
specifically pushing Milwaukee with a limping Giannis.
yeah,
That's what.
no. I honestly I don't think that they can beat Milwaukee without Giannis.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would say that's a roughly even matchup. In fact, I think if you put Giannis on Brooklyn, they're just as good as Milwaukee is.
Maybe I don't know, especially not with Pau Gasol and Mirotic. Yeah, no, and
Mirotic,
Bledsoe,
Mirotic
and
doesn't
Bledsoe.
sound as right. I like all of those guys, but I also like Joe Ingles. I mean, not Joe Ingles.
Joe
Joe
Harris,
Harris.
and
Uh,
Jared Allen. I really like.
Jared Allen's awesome.
Yeah.
And so is Dinwiddie and Levert,
Oh,
man.
Dinwiddie's the truth. Dinwiddie, I really like Dinwiddie, but
Nice.
but
Like,
I think I
like,
like
nice.
I really like Dinwiddie, especially in the role that he plays. I
Yeah,
really like it. He's so smart, such a smart basketball
for
player.
sure.
I hate that the Bulls let him go just really for like a bag of golf balls. But I mean, because we're looking for a point guard right now.
Yeah. Oh, you would love Dinwiddie right now.
Yeah. So there that is. But yeah, man,
So, and here's the thing: when you shoot as well as Brooklyn shoots,
mhm.
you can win games you don't deserve to win. That's my entire
Oh
point.
yeah, the
It's not
shooting
to say that
brings you back in the
it's not
games.
to say
Yeah.
that Brooklyn is better than Milwaukee. They're not,
They're just
obviously.
they can be dangerous because of the shooting for sure.
And if Brooklyn is at full strength, particularly bringing in the fact that they're getting stronger as the season goes on, getting LeVert back, and the growth of D'Angelo Russell now, they're an entirely different team than they were in the first 5 weeks of the season. So, you know, that could be particularly when after LeVert went down. Milwaukee would like to avoid that matchup. But outside of that matchup, I think they have a lot of margin of error in terms of bringing back Giannis, which is my point. It's just they can afford to rest Giannis.
Yeah, I think they definitely can afford to rest him too. So yeah, that's what we got today, guys. Probably went just a couple minutes longer than we wanted. And we do still have some questions, like I said, from Ask Us Bro. We'll spill that into next week. I'm interested in hearing what you guys think though about the live show. So if you can hit us up on Twitter. You can do it at at me bro show, or you can do it at myself, which is at UniqueMazique, or at Nelson Blake 2 on Twitter. Let us know what you think about the live show. If you think that that's cooler or whatever. I'm not making any promises. I don't want to speak for Nelson or anything like that, or even the producer of the show, my awesome wife. I don't want to necessarily do that, but I do want to hear what you guys think about
I'm
it.
surprised you are so willing to go to a format where Portia can't save you in the edit. That's amazing.
What do
I
you
applaud that.
save me in the edit? You know what? You know how many times she has saved you in the edit, and I said, and I was like, murder him, and she's like, no, don't murder Nelson. You know, he's touched, and you know, so in certain parts where, like, if we let it stay, people would know you're out of your mind.
I'm not
So
the one who would take Ray Allen over Kobe Bryant.
and that's part of the reason why you're nuts. So we're trying to hide these things from you, but now you're letting it all out, so you can't blame me when people start sending you pamphlets for interventions. So it's on you. But I appreciate everybody watching as always. This was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, man. This was a lot of fun.
And yeah,
Definitely
didn't
shout outs to
didn't
everybody in the chat.
definitely, man. You guys, for the most part, we had the same around about the same number for the whole time,
Yep.
which I think is really dope. Z3 Gaming, appreciate you, Big Heck Money, and everybody. Gimon Tag, I saw you come in. I saw your question, man. I'm gonna just go ahead and throw the answer out. My answer for the average viewership for 2K League is about 15,000 this year, is what I think. Somewhere 15,000, 20,000, I think it was pretty much similar to what it was last year. So that's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you watching as always. God bless and peace.